Chapter 888. Shui Yuan was overjoyed. She knew that although her little junior brother was still unconscious, his instincts were still there. After sensing her aura, he let down his guard. She no longer hesitated and sent her divine sense into it. In the next moment she arrived in a strange world. This should be the depths of Lu Ye's soul. In the center of the gray world, there was a vague figure curled up, as if it was sleeping in its mother's womb. The silhouette was surrounded by something that looked like fog but wasn't fog. It looked like liquid but wasn't liquid. Looking at the figure carefully, it clearly had some resemblance to Lu Yi. Seeing this bizarre scene, Shui Yuan was instantly stupefied. Her cultivation had been cultivated step by step, so she had naturally experienced the transformation from true lake to spirit sea. Moreover, because the Jade Blood sect had few people and lacked cultivation resources, she had been stuck in this transformation process for a long time. Her memory of this was still fresh. The vague figure in front of her, could it be her little junior brother's soul body? That thing that was wrapped around his soul was neither mist nor liquid. Could it be the manifestation of his divine sense? How could this be? Even though Shui Yuan was a spirit sea realm cultivator, she was still shaken to the core. The most crucial step for a cultivator to advance from true lake to spirit sea was the step in front of them. Their soul had to be strong enough to nurture their own soul body. Logically speaking, a cultivator could only slowly accumulate such a foundation after reaching true lake realm 9th order. Moreover, not every true lake realm cultivator could accumulate it. There were many spirit sea realm cultivators in the 9 continents, but there were even more true lake realm cultivators. Even if some cultivators were talented, many were stuck at this stage because their soul wasn't strong enough. If their soul wasn't strong enough, they couldn't nurture their own soul body. If they couldn't nurture their own soul body, they couldn't develop their divine sense. Naturally, they couldn't touch the threshold of the spirit sea realm. Generally speaking, it was rare for a true lake cultivator to advance to spirit sea. This was also the case in the unique cultivation environment of the 9 continents. If it wasn't in the 9 continents, such as the Soaring Dragon Realm or the Peerless Continent, it would be more difficult for a true lake cultivator to advance to spirit sea. In the 9 continents, there were various operations of Heaven's secrets. There was a huge variety of treasures stored in the Heaven's secret treasury. What cultivators needed to do was to accumulate their own merits or war achievements and buy the various resources they needed. The Soaring Dragon Realm and the Wuxia continent did not have this condition. A soul body that even a true lake realm 9th order cultivator might not be able to nurture had actually appeared in his junior brother's body. Shui Yuan really couldn't understand why this was happening. Could it be that his little junior brother's soul was strong enough to give birth to a soul body? But he had just broken through to the true lake realm not long ago. A first-order true lake realm cultivator had already begun to nurture his own soul body. No one would believe such a thing. But on second thought, if his junior brother's soul was indeed strong enough to nurture a soul body, then the reason why he was unconscious was found. After observing for a moment longer to make sure that she wasn't seeing things, Shui Yuan retracted her spiritual perception. When he looked up, he saw Yi's nervous little face. Thought Moon Immortal was also waiting quietly by the side. Let me ask you something. You have to tell me the truth, Shui Yun said. Yes. Yi nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. Did Lu Yi consume all of the soul-cleansing water he got, other than the ones he gave to me and 4th junior brother? Before? Yi was a little confused. Which one are you talking about? Shui Yuan was stunned. There was another one? Shui Yuan knew that Lu Yi had soul-cleansing water in his hands. The reason why he was able to break through to the Divine Sea realm so quickly was not only because Lu Yi brought a huge amount of resources to the Blue Blood sect, but also because of the soul-cleansing water he gave her. As far as she knew, Lu Yi gave some to Li Baxin in addition to her, so he should have kept some for himself. But when he asked, which one, Shui Yuan realized that things weren't so simple. Listening to what she said, it seemed that Lu Yi had gotten soul-cleansing water more than once. Sure enough, Yi nodded. A few months ago, he entered the Immortal Essence City again and obtained a lot of soul-cleansing water. The ones he got at the beginning have long been used up. Shui Yuan was a little dumbfounded when she heard this. That was soul-cleansing water, not some random thing. Lu Yi gave her some back then. Other than using some to break through to the Divine Sea realm, she was unwilling to use most of it in case she needed it. That was because this thing couldn't be bought in the Tianji treasure vault. Every time she used it, she would have less of it. There weren't many ways to obtain it. Yi continued, anyway, I often see him using soul-cleansing water. He used it when breaking through the 100 Formation Pagoda, when investigating new spirit patterns, and when activating the talent tree's power. Every now and then, when he felt that his energy wasn't enough, he might use it to refresh himself. Jianghu Immortal's expression also turned strange. She wanted to ask if the soul-cleansing water they were talking about was the same as the one she knew. Shui Yuan suddenly felt a headache coming on. She nodded slightly. If that's the case, I understand. What do you mean? Jianghu Immortal asked. She didn't know why Shui Yuan would suddenly ask about soul-cleansing water after investigating Lu Ye's situation. Shui Yuan didn't hide it from her. After so many years of friendship, they were both friends and family. It was enough to trust each other. Lu Yi is nurturing his soul. Jianghu Immortal was stunned for a while before frowning. That's impossible. I don't think it's possible either. But I saw it with my own eyes. It can't be wrong. Shui Yuan took a deep breath, and her full chest rose high. He's been consuming soul-cleansing water for a long time, causing his spirit to be much stronger than his true cultivation base. He barely has the ability to nurture a soul. If there's no external stimulation, it won't take long for him to reach this level. However, he was previously stimulated by external forces. His spirit should have been impacted. He might not know what nurturing a soul is, but driven by instinct, he made this choice to protect himself. Jianghu Immortal nodded. Yes, Wanzhonggang attacked him with spiritual force. Wanzhonggang? A cold light flashed in Shui Yuan's eyes. A great divine sea bullying the weak. Shameless. Jianghu Immortal said, you came to Wanjief because you were impacted by Wanzhonggang's spiritual force. Your spirit was shaken, so driven by instinct, you used this method to protect yourself. Shui Yuan nodded. It's a blessing in disguise. But there's a problem now. She turned to look at Yi. I said just now, although his spirit is strong, it's barely enough to nurture a soul. A cultivator in the process realm would fall here, just like Lu Ye's current state. He failed to nurture a soul and continued for his entire life. That's it. Then what should we do? Yi became nervous. Shui Yuan raised a hand and knocked her head. Stupid. He needs to nurture a soul, so he'll naturally consume a lot of spirit power. We just need to replenish the spirit power he consumes. The moment his soul is successfully nurtured, he'll naturally wake up. Soul-cleansing water. Yi's eyes lit up. Shui Yuan nodded. It's all here. Yi quickly took out the bottle of soul-cleansing water and handed it to Shui Yuan. Lu Yi put the rest in the tattooed space. That should be enough. Shui Yuan smiled faintly. Now that she understood Lu Ye's current situation and had a corresponding solution, her mood also relaxed. Moreover, she still had some soul-cleansing water. If it wasn't enough, she could go to Li Baxian. He should have some as well. After all, no one was like Lu Yi, drinking soul-cleansing water like it was water. This matter was simple to solve here, but if it was someone else who encountered this situation, it would be difficult to solve. Unless they found some spirit fruits or spirit pills that could replenish spiritual energy, but these things were all precious and precious. The big sects treasured them and wouldn't easily take them out. But then again, this time, Lu Yi might really be a blessing in disguise. Even Wanzhonggang didn't expect this. Wanzhonggang's soul attack in anger would force Lu Yi to instinctively nurture a soul. And once Lu Yi succeeded, it would mean that he, a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, would have his own soul and divine sense. This was absolutely unprecedented. At that time, he, a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, would be able to use some of the methods that only Spirit Sea Realm cultivators could use. He would be able to kill enemies above his realm, and no one could predict what kind of change his true combat power would undergo. Inside the bamboo house, everyone stayed close to the bed. Shui Yuan would occasionally send her divine sense into Lu Ye's body to check his condition and then make some targeted measures. She originally thought that giving Lu Yi 1 drop of soul-cleansing water a day would be enough, but after checking, she found that the amount was still too little. She immediately changed it to 2 drops a day, then 3. Not to mention the preciousness of soul-cleansing water, ordinary cultivators would not be able to bear taking so much in one day. This was the so-called weak principle. However, because Lu Yi had been taking soul-cleansing water for a long time, he didn't show any adverse reactions. Moreover, because of the effect of soul-cleansing water, the speed at which his soul was being nurtured had greatly increased. Under Shui Yuan's observation, the originally blurry shadow gradually became more solid, and the strange thing that wrapped it also showed signs of liquefaction. 3 days later, when Shui Yuan finished her final examination, she slowly got up from the bed and said he should wake up tonight at the earliest, or tomorrow at the latest. He, who had been worried all this time, finally smiled when she heard this. "You're not waiting for him to wake up?" Nian Yuxian sensed the meaning behind Shui Yuan's words. Shui Yuan shook her head. "No need. I'm relieved that he's with you." Nian Yuxian snorted softly. She didn't know who it was that came over a few days ago with a posture that looked like they wanted to eat her alive. Shui Yuan pretended not to see it. "I'll go back first. There are many things to do in the sect now, and the old man has no time to leave." Nian Yuxian nodded slightly. Shui Yuan took a step forward and looked back at Nian Yuxian. "If you have time, go and see the old man. He misses you." "Got it." Pushing her spirit energy, Shui Yuan shot up into the sky and quickly left. When she looked back, he was standing at the door, waving goodbye to her. Chapter 889. Lu Yi felt like he had a very long dream, but when he woke up, he could not remember the contents of the dream. However, at this moment, his mind was unprecedentedly clear, and even his thoughts seemed to be working faster than before. There was a faint feeling that some kind of transformation had taken place. He did not know what had happened to his body. He only remembered that he had activated the flying rainbow phoenixes and joined forces with the Thought Moon Immortal to defend against the enemy. Accompanied by a furious roar, he felt a sharp pain in his head and then lost consciousness. There seemed to be something not quite right. He looked at Yi in front of him and found that Yi was frowning and staring behind him. Her gaze seemed to have passed through the barrier of his body. Bewildered, Yi turned to look to the side. "Sister Xian, this is..." Lu Yi wanted to ask her what she was looking at, but when he opened his mouth, no sound came out. This gave him a fright. It was only then that he realized something inconceivable. He actually did not have a body. He was clearly standing here and could see everything around him, but there was no physical existence. He was dead. Search. When this thought appeared, Lu Yi fell into a daze. Divine sense is unique to the divine ocean realm. You used the true lake realm to nurture your soul body and give birth to divine sense. It is inevitable that there will be a lot of discomfort. Now that your divine sense has left your body, it is not an accident. Be careful of your mind, and your divine sense will naturally return to your body. The Thought Moon Immortal's voice came from the side. Lu Yi turned to look and met the Thought Moon Immortal's cold gaze. She seemed to be able to see him and nodded slightly. "Do as I say, and there will be no problems." Lu Yi quickly immersed his mind and discarded the many distracting thoughts in his mind. The next moment, he felt that there seemed to be something beside him that had an extremely close connection with him. When he turned to look, he could not help but see a surprising scene. His body was lying on the bamboo bed beside him. Thinking about what the Thought Moon Immortal said just now, Lu Yi more or less understood what had happened to him. With a thought, his divine sense returned to his body. All the discomfort disappeared in an instant, and he could feel his own existence again. He suddenly opened his eyes and sat up on the bed. "Lu Yi, you're awake." Yi rushed over and looked at him with concern. "Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Hu Po also jumped onto his knees and stared at him with a pair of tiger eyes. Lu Yi shook his head slowly. "No, I feel very good." Indeed, he felt very good. From inside to outside, he had never felt so good before. He gently clenched his fists. There was no change in his strength, but some kind of internal transformation had been completed silently. My lord, he stood up and cupped his fists towards Thought Moon Immortal, who was not far away, asking for guidance. My lord, you said that I have nurtured a soul body and given birth to a divine will. The Thought Moon Immortal nodded. In the previous battle, you suffered an attack from 10,000 Zhonggang's spiritual sense. If it was any other true lake stage cultivator, they would have already died. However, your spiritual sense was strong enough to survive. Even so, your spiritual sense was still heavily injured and you fell into a coma. In order to protect yourself, you nurtured your spiritual body and escaped from your suffering. Now that you have awakened, it means that you have successfully nurtured your spiritual body. What happened just now was your spiritual sense leaving your body. Lu Yi couldn't help but be absent-minded. Soul body, divine sense. Then am I considered a true lake or deity ocean? Is there a divine sea as weak as you? Thought Moon Immortal calmly replied. Lu Yi thought that was true. Even though he had a soul body and spiritual will, his cultivation level was still at the true lake stage. But then again, since he had already given birth to a god, spiritual sense, then he could use some techniques unique to the divine sea stage. For example, the charm god pattern. This thing required spiritual sense to construct and activate. You have just given birth to your spiritual sense, so it is inevitable that you are not used to it. You will be fine once you get used to it. Everyone needs to go through this stage. If there is anything you do not understand about the spiritual sense, feel free to ask me. This is some general knowledge about the divine sea stage. Take a look yourself. Thought Moon Immortal threw him a jade letter. Obviously, it was specially prepared for him. Lu Yi received it. Thank you, my lord. Also, if you wear this on your body, it will have a certain effect on resisting spiritual sense attacks. Thought Moon Immortal took out another item. Lu Yi looked up and realized that it was a small golden lock. It looked like a longevity lock and should be worn around his neck. I wore this when I was in the true lake stage. It is useless now, so I will give it to you. As Thought Moon Immortal said, she threw it to Lu Yi and added, if there comes a day when you no longer need this item, you can return it to me. Lu Yi grabbed that golden lock. He instinctively felt that this item should be something very meaningful to Thought Moon Immortal. He originally wanted to reject it, but when he thought of his experience, he accepted it obediently. When a true lake stage cultivator faced a spiritual sense attack from a divine sea stage cultivator, they did not have any good methods to deal with it. They could only rely on their own soul to resist it. A cultivator with a powerful soul like Lu Yi could still survive a spiritual sense attack. But if it was a cultivator with a weaker soul, their life and death would depend on their luck. However, cultivators from large sections. Usually, they would wear a treasure that had a certain effect on resisting spiritual sense attacks. This way, they could increase their chances of survival in front of a divine sea stage cultivator. Without hesitation, he wore that golden lock around his neck. Don't go out for the next few days. Familiarize yourself with your spiritual sense. Thought Moon Immortal reminded him before turning to leave. Lu Yi always felt that she was a little strange. During their previous interactions, this Mountain Pass Lord had been tormenting him and giving him messy missions. Moreover, she seemed to have a cold temperament and did not like to interact with outsiders. But overall, he felt that she was not too hard to get along with. After this incident, Lu Yi felt that their relationship would improve. But now, it seemed that his Mountain Pass Lord's aura of being 1,000 miles away was even stronger. Even though she kept reminding him about this and that, and even gave him things, that feeling was not wrong. Second senior sister is here. Lu Yi suddenly sniffed lightly and asked. He was surprised. How did you know? When Shui Yuan came, Lu Yi was unconscious. When Shui Yuan left, Lu Yi was still unconscious. It did not make sense for Lu Yi to know about this. I smell second senior sister. Lu Yi answered casually. Everyone had a different scent, and the scent of mandarin fish gave people a very warm feeling. He could not help but glare at Lu Yi and say, when Sister Xian brought you back, she sent a message to second senior sister. So on the night we returned, second senior sister rushed here. It was she who treated your injuries and found out why you were unconscious. But second senior sister has already returned to the sect. Lu Yi sighed. She left without waiting for me to wake up. As he spoke, he checked the jade slip that Thought Moon Immortal had given him. The jade slip recorded information about the Spirit Sea realm, as well as things that cultivators who had just entered the Spirit Sea realm needed to pay attention to. Among them, there was a detailed explanation of the soul body and spiritual sense. In a short while, Lu Yi finished checking. Closing his eyes, he followed the method in the jade slip and immersed his mind. In the next instant, his body suddenly underwent some strange changes. Lu Yi hurriedly examined himself and found that he was no longer in the bamboo house, but in a strange world. This should be the depths of his soul. At this moment, he was also in the state of a soul body. Everyone's soul body was an imprint of themselves. Whatever their original appearance was, the soul body would be the same. The soul body was formless and formless, seemingly illusory yet real. Converging to form the soul body, dissipating to form spiritual sense. Cultivators could only enter the Spirit Sea realm after taking that step like Lu Yi, nurturing their own soul body and giving birth to spiritual sense. This was a huge hurdle. Since ancient times, countless true lake-stage cultivators had fallen in front of this hurdle. But to Lu Yi, this hurdle was already broken through. In other words, he would not face any obstacles in advancing to the Spirit Sea realm in the future. As long as his cultivation reached the right level, success would follow naturally. This was undoubtedly good news. After experiencing what he needed to experience, there would be some benefits. Looking in front of him, there were sparkling waves and rippling water. Lu Ye's expression turned strange. The origin of the name Spirit Sea Realm came from the fact that one's spiritual sense could form a sea. But how could the sparkling waves in front of him be considered a sea? It was even worse than a lake. At most, it could be considered a small pond. God's lake, but thinking about it, he was after all a true lake-stage cultivator's soul body. He had broken through the inherent shackles of ancient times. The scale of this spirit sea was a little small. It seemed reasonable. He could not force it. As long as he cultivated step by step, there would be a day when the Spirit Sea realm would become a Spirit Sea realm. With a thought, his soul came out of his body and his spiritual sense spread out. When he just woke up, he subconsciously used his spiritual sense. But at that time, he did not understand the situation, so he did not feel much. Until now, he took the initiative to do it. Under the spread of his spiritual sense, everything around him entered his heart. It was more detailed and comprehensive than looking with the naked eye. Before he had spiritual sense, Lu Yi mainly relied on his own perception of his surroundings. But pure perception was extremely vague. It was as if someone was standing behind him. With his perception, Lu Yi knew that there was someone behind him. But whether this person was a man or a woman, or what they looked like, he was completely unclear. However, now that he was relying on his spiritual sense, not only was he able to clearly see the person's appearance, he was even able to see what the person was wearing. Relying on his spiritual sense, there was no doubt that he had a qualitative breakthrough. Moreover, when his divine sense left his body just now, he had clearly noticed some clues. This was because he was not familiar enough with controlling his divine sense and had leaked his aura. If he was familiar enough and could perfectly control his divine sense, such a method could be used to pry into some secrets. But he did not know how far he could see. With this thought, Lu Yi used his spiritual sense to extend outwards and instantly left the bamboo house. Not long after, he saw the figure of Thought Moon Immortal. She was guarding nearby, sitting on the trunk of a big tree. In her hand, she was holding the wine that Lu Yi had bought for her from the nearby mountain pass. Drinking alone under the moon. Her figure was bleak and lonely. Chapter 890. Almost at the same time as Lu Ye's divine sense spied on her, Thought Moon Immortal turned her gaze to him. The risk of divine sense leaving the body is huge. If I were an enemy, I could break your divine sense right now and damage your spirit. Therefore, even if you are in the divine sea realm, you won't easily use divine sense. You must be careful when you do this in the future. After saying this, she looked away and looked up at the moon. Lu Yi silently noted it down and urged his divine sense to pass by her and continue to explore forward. However, the further he went, the more difficult it was. Lu Yi could clearly feel that his spirit power was rapidly being consumed. After a while, he couldn't help but feel tired. He didn't dare to continue trying and quickly withdrew his divine sense. When he opened his eyes again, his head was a little dizzy. He knew that this was because he had consumed too much spirit power. After all, the divine pool was still too small. Although he had already nurtured a soul body and developed divine sense, he still couldn't use it for a long time. However, through the experiment just now, he was sure of one thing. His divine sense could explore a radius of about 1 mile, which was much larger than the range that could be explored by perception alone. Moreover, it could be more clear and comprehensive. Feeling a little tired, Lu Yi didn't hesitate and directly swallowed a drop of soul-cleansing water. For others, soul-cleansing water was rare, but for him, it could be exchanged for with battle merits. In the battle merits pavilion, a drop of soul-cleansing water was worth 13,000 battle merits. Even if it was used up, he could still obtain it at any time. Moreover, he still had a lot of divine sense in his hands, so there was no need to be stingy. Speaking of which, it was precisely because of his open-minded mood that his spirit was strong enough to have the opportunity to turn danger into safety and gain a blessing in disguise. There was no hurry to familiarize himself with divine sense. This wasn't difficult in itself. For Lu Yi, it was just an additional means to investigate the enemy's situation and even fight against them. As time passed, he would gradually become familiar with it. It was time to check on his gains this time. This time, he went to the Xen Society on Mount Dad to light up the spiritual inscription that he had been looking forward to for 2 or 3 months. However, he didn't expect so many things to happen by accident. Not only did he obtain 7 new spiritual inscriptions, but his talent tree also seemed to show signs of transformation. He also obtained a large number of fire spirit stones. Other than putting himself in danger at the last moment to save Thought Moon Immortal, it could be said that he had gained a lot. But at that time, he really couldn't sit back and do nothing. The reason why the missing Moon Immortal's whereabouts were exposed and she was besieged by several Divine Sea Realm cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge was because of him. In this way, they could be considered to be even. Lu Yi wasn't too sure about the effects of the 7 newly obtained spirit tattoos. When Yi and Hooper returned, he had already fallen unconscious. He immediately asked Yi about the situation at that time. When he found out that the two of them were able to imitate Shanhai's or text, he underestimated this spirit rune. It was true that it could not bring him any improvement in strength, but at a critical moment, this spiritual pattern could produce some miraculous effects. Take this time as an example. If it weren't for Yi and Hooper rushing over at the last moment despite the might of the Divine Sea Realm, Wan Zhonggang wouldn't have retreated so easily. He might really have had to fight to the death with Thought Moon Immortal. There was no need to talk about Moonshine. This thing was the core spirit rune of the counter formation. When Lu Yi activated it to block Wan Zhonggang's attack, it didn't seem to have much effect, but in fact, it had already produced miraculous effects. At that time, if he didn't have Moonshine, he wouldn't have been able to block a Divine Sea Realm cultivator's attack with just his defense, even if it was just a hasty and casual attack. Flying rainbow phoenixes was the key to saving Thought Moon Immortal this time. Lu Yi hadn't tried the corresponding spirit rune yet, but this spirit rune couldn't be casually tested unless he used Yi as a test subject. Other than these 4 spirit runes, the remaining 3 were Thousand Faces, Split Shadow, and Twin Lotus Flowers on one stalk. Thousand Faces was a type of spirit rune that could change one's appearance. When activated, Lu Yi could change his appearance. A long time ago, he wanted to buy a treasure that could change his appearance from the Tianji treasure vault. Because of his reputation, many cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge had seen his image. There were many times when he needed to hide his identity. But he hadn't found a suitable one, so he could only use a face mask. But a face mask was too eye-catching. Although there were many cultivators who liked to wear a face mask and hide their true appearance, there were always times when it wasn't good to wear a face mask. For example, when he went to Lonely Mountain City with Wuxia, The experts of the Myriad Devil Ridge were busy dealing with the attack of the fire spirit race and didn't have time to pay attention to him. In addition, he was with Wuxia, so the Myriad Devil Ridge naturally treated him as one of their own. But under normal circumstances, wearing a face mask would make it more conspicuous. If Lonely Mountain City really wanted to check his identity, he definitely wouldn't be able to pass. Now that he had the Thousand Faces spirit rune, he could completely throw away the face mask. With this spirit rune, he could transform into any face he wanted. But compared to wearing a face mask, the Thousand Faces spirit rune needed to be activated to maintain it. This was one of its disadvantages. Unlike a face mask, one only needed to wear it on one's face to activate it. The Thousand Faces spirit rune was a very useful spirit rune. Under the activation of the spirit rune, one could use one's chi, blood, and spirit energy as the basis to construct a figure that was no different from one's own. At a critical moment, it could be used to escape or to confuse the enemy. This time, if he hadn't been holding the Thought Moon Immortal, he could have activated this spirit rune when facing the attack of one Jianghu. As for how useful this spirit rune would be in front of a powerful Divine Sea Realm cultivator, no one knew. As for the Twin Lotus Flowers, this spirit rune was a bit strange. It was similar to the combination of the Flying Rainbow Phoenixes and the 1 point of telepathy, but it wasn't exactly the same. Lu Yi didn't know where to use this spirit rune. But after his experience with the spirit rune, Lu Yi was still looking forward to this spirit rune. A spirit rune that required dozens of leaves to carry it wasn't ordinary. He couldn't find the right way to use it now, but he should be able to in the future. Obtaining 7 new spirit runes in one go had already broken the previous record. The main reason was that the talent tree at the mouth of Mount Songyan had absorbed too much energy. Not only did it light up 7 spirit runes, but the talent tree itself was also showing signs of turning into a pie. The transformation of the talent tree definitely required a lot of energy. Fortunately, he had obtained a lot of fire spiritual stones this time. The fire spiritual stones that Wuxia's team had mined were all in his hands. These were just a part of it. The real bulk was found by him and Yi in the underground city. Such a large amount should be enough for the transformation of the talent tree. But then again, he and Yi had only searched a small area and already had such a harvest. If they searched the entire underground city, their harvest would be even greater. There was also a hidden fire element earth vein. If he could get it, the talent tree would have a lot of changes. Unfortunately, the Myriad Demons Ridge had benefited. The fire spirit race's army didn't conquer the Lone Mountain Pass. Instead, they suffered heavy casualties. The Myriad Demons Ridge had to get rid of this hidden danger completely. If the fire spirit race was eradicated, everything in the mouth of the volcano would belong to the Myriad Demons Ridge. He felt it was a pity, but there was nothing he could do about it. Only he and the Thought Moon Immortal were at the mouth of Mount Songyan. They had just experienced a dangerous situation. Naturally, they had to keep a low profile for a while. Slouch not thinking about this, Lu Yi took out his mountain pan saber. He unsheathed the saber and looked at it. The corner of his eyes twitched. He had gained a lot this time, but there were also losses. The biggest loss was the mountain pan saber. This magic artifact level long saber had several cracks on it because it had blocked one Zhangong's punch. It was obviously not very useful anymore. Lu Yi couldn't change the saber casually unless the mountain pan saber was completely broken. Since he couldn't change the saber, he could only repair it. He raised his hand and tapped on the battlefield imprint to send out a message. He soon received a reply. He didn't know why Master Yu was so free. He flashed out and came to the tree where the Thought Moon Immortal was. Lu Yi looked up and shouted, "My lord, is there a divine secret hall here?" Logically speaking, there should be one, but Lu Yi didn't know where it was. "It's at the center of the city. Go look for it yourself," the Thought Moon Immortal replied casually. Lu Yi cupped his fists and retreated. He flew toward the ruined city. Soon, he arrived at the center of the city and found a relatively intact hall. When he entered, he saw a pillar of heavenly secrets standing there. He stepped forward and pressed his hand on the divine secret pillar. He said in his heart, "Spiritual artifact upgrade, Master Yu." In the next moment, the world spun. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a secret room. There was a stone platform in the middle. On the opposite side, a woman in her 30s with fair skin and wearing a close-fitting floral dress was already waiting. Their eyes met. The woman opened her mouth and said with that old voice, "Little friend, your strength has improved again?" Last time, Lu Yi asked her to upgrade her spiritual artifact during the Spirit Stream battle. The Mountain Pan Saber had also been upgraded from spiritual artifact to magic artifact. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have come to find her so quickly. She didn't expect to receive Lu Ye's message today. They agreed to meet at the same place. No. Lu Yi didn't waste time and directly handed the Mountain Pan Saber over. The woman took the saber and took a look. Her beautiful eyes couldn't help but shrink. It was a magic artifact that she refined herself. Moreover, the Mountain Pan Saber was mainly heavy. She knew how hard it was. But now, several cracks were clearly visible on the saber. Moreover, looking at the patterns, it was clearly caused by brute force. "You were beaten up by a divine sea realm cultivator?" The woman was extremely shocked. Lu Yi was speechless. He didn't even say anything. This woman only took a look at the saber and deduced such information. It could be seen that she was also a quick-witted person. "Interesting. You're actually still alive." The woman laughed lightly. The Mountain Pan Saber suffered such heavy damage. It didn't make sense that the person holding the saber could survive. However, Lu Yi was standing in front of her. Looking at it this way, this brat in front of her must be from some top sect. He must have a life-saving treasure on him. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for him to survive. "Name your price." "Yes." After interacting with her several times, Lu Yi roughly knew this woman's temperament. Therefore, he didn't bother to waste time with her. Soon, the two sides agreed on the price and time of delivery. They set a divine secret contract and left their imprints on the divine secret contract. He clicked to download the Best Book Chaser app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 891. Not in a hurry to leave the Tianji treasury, Lu Yi bought some fresh meat and contacted the War Merit Pavilion again. There was something he needed to buy for later use. Seeing his arrival, the two flood dragons on the ancient door immediately came to life. The silver flood dragon on the right was even more expectant. "Kid, what delicious food did you bring this time?" The golden flood dragon on the left did not speak, but its raised head clearly showed its eagerness. Countless years of waiting could be endured, but once the taboo was broken and tasted the sweetness, their state of mind would be different. They could endure endless loneliness and darkness, as if they had never seen the light. Lu Yi smiled and took out the prepared meat, feeding it to the two flood dragons. The silver flood dragon was still the same, chewing while shouting, satisfying, delicious. The golden flood dragon was undoubtedly more reserved than the silver flood dragon, but its wolf-like appearance was not inferior at all. After finishing the meat in 2 to 3 bites, the silver flood dragon looked at Lu Yi expectantly, obviously still wanting more. Where could Lu Yi find more? The meat he bought from the Tianji treasury was not cheap, costing him close to 20,000 merits. They were all demonic commander-level demonic beast meat. Although he did not lack merits, he could not buy too much at once. After staring at Lu Yi for a while, the silver flood dragon didn't come to feed it but instead seemed to have discovered something strange. With a cry of surprise, it stretched its long body out of the door and circled around Lu Yi, its large head floating in front of Lu Yi, its pair of vertical pupils reflecting Lu Ye's figure. The silver flood dragon suddenly laughed. "Big brother, this little brat has a divine sense." The golden flood dragon's pupils shrank slightly. It looked at Lu Yi carefully and could not help but reveal a surprised expression, as expected. Lu Yi was astonished. How could it tell? What was the background of this gold flood dragon? His figure here should only be a projection of his mind, not his physical body, because his physical body was still in the Tianji Hall. Logically speaking, Gold Flood Dragon should not be able to see any clues. Because even if Lu Yi stood in front of a divine ocean stage cultivator, if he did not actively use his spiritual will, the other party would not be able to discover anything. But he was only a projection of his mind here, yet Gold Flood Dragon saw some secrets. This was somewhat inconceivable. Brat, you're only in the true lake stage, how can you nurture a soul and give birth to spiritual will? The Golden Jiao Dragon had a puzzled expression. In its ancient life, it had never seen such a bizarre thing, and it couldn't help but be curious. Some luck, some coincidence. Lu Yi didn't plan to explain too much to them, mainly because he couldn't. Although he didn't know why the two flood dragons were guarding the entrance of the War Merit Pavilion, after a few interactions, he could more or less see that this wasn't their original intention. It was more like they had been inexplicably integrated into the entrance of the War Merit Pavilion, which was why they were trapped here and couldn't escape. Since that was the case, it didn't matter if they saw through him. May I go in now? Lu Yi asked. The Golden Flood Dragon stared deeply at Lu Yi for a while before letting out a sinister laugh. What a strange kid. Right after Xiao Qin spoke, he withdrew with the Silver Flood Dragon. The two flood dragons twisted and turned into a concentric circle above the door. With a creaking sound, the door of the War Merit Pavilion opened. Lu Yi went straight in, arriving in front of a stone platform with familiar ease, and spent 18,000 battle merits to buy a Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint. The back of his hand warmed slightly, and a red light flashed. The battlefield imprint he bought from the War Merit Pavilion was not permanent, but a one-time use item. Lu Yi knew this when he bought it. Moreover, it didn't last for a long time, only 2 hours. In other words, the Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint hidden on the back of his hand, once activated, would only last for 2 hours. After 2 hours, it would dissipate on its own. Therefore, Lu Ye's action of following Ingwuji to the Lone City Rampart that day was actually very dangerous, because if someone wanted to verify their identity at that time, Lu Yi would have had nothing to hide. However, he was also certain that the Lone City Rampart side would most likely not do so, which was why he had acted so boldly. After all, he had gone with Ingwuji, and naturally gave the Myriad Demon Ridge side a preconceived impression. Moreover, at that time, the Fire Spirit Race army was about to reach the city, so who would have the mind to verify his identity? The previous Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint had already dissipated, so he naturally had to buy another one. After this incident, Lu Yi felt that Wang Yuanyi was very useful. Most of the time, he could use Wang Yuanyi to fish in the water and confuse the enemy. For example, if he didn't have the Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint, he would most likely have clashed with Ingwuji and the others and killed everyone. After checking his battle merits, he was left with 88,410 points. Compared to the last time he checked, it had increased instead of decreased. Lu Yi thought about it. It was most likely because he had obtained some of the battle merits from killing the Fire Spirit Race and the Patrol Guard's moon physique. He had thought that having too many positions was useless, but now it seemed that they were actually useful. He had 2 positions. One was the Garrison Guard, and the other was the Patrol Guard. He could get 2 monthly salaries, each of which was 20,000 battle merits. This also meant that even if he did nothing at the Blue Flame Mountain Pass and just went out to patrol every day, he could easily get 40,000 battle merits every month. This was a good thing that couldn't be found even if one held a lantern. No wonder so many cultivators liked to run to the front lines of the 2 factions and join the prefecture guards. He had a position, but the position of the Garrison Guard was very special. There was no military rank, and he didn't know how many moon physiques she had. 80,000 battle merits could be exchanged for a few golden spirit tags. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and decided not to exchange for them. He needed to accumulate some battle merits to buy a treasure. This time, he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Wan Zhanggang, which made him deeply feel the huge difference between himself and the Divine Sea Realm. In the future, he would inevitably have to deal with other Divine Sea Realm cultivators. Although he now had his own divine lake and had nurtured divine will, he had been lucky enough to have a divine lake. There was still a big gap between him and a proper Divine Sea Realm cultivator. How to protect his soul in front of Divine Sea Realm cultivators was the most important thing for him to consider now. The Thought Moon Immortal gave him a golden lock. It was said that it could slightly resist divine will attacks, but it was hard to say how effective it was. Lu Yi had never tried it, so he didn't know how powerful it was. However, he couldn't entrust his life to this golden lock. There was no need to talk about other things in the War Merit Pavilion, but there were all kinds of treasures. Naturally, there were treasures that could protect one's soul. These treasures had a special name. Soul Tool. Lu Yi had his eyes on a soul tool, but it was expensive and he couldn't afford it at the moment. Lu Yi didn't stay in the War Merit Pavilion for long and left quickly. The two flood dragons behind him sent him off. After leaving the Tianji Hall, Lu Yi returned to his bamboo house. Yi and Hupo were already waiting for him. Cultivate, cultivate, Lu Yi called out. The spirit and tiger immediately came to his side and sat down obediently. The cultivation of the true lake realm was different from that of the spirit stream realm and the cloud river realm. Pang Huanin had been puzzled about one thing. After she came to the 9 prefectures, she could feel that the 9 prefectures was vast and rich in resources. However, the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the 9 prefectures was not very rich. Although it was much better than the broken Wushuang continent, it was still not enough to give birth to a divine sea realm cultivator. In fact, it would be very difficult for a cultivator to break through to the true lake realm just by relying on the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the 9 prefectures. However, there were many true lake realm cultivators in the 9 prefectures, and there were also many divine sea realm cultivators. The root of this was the unique cultivation method of the 9 prefectures cultivators. When a cultivator was in the spirit stream realm, there was the spirit stream battlefield. Various sects and clans had their own encampments. The encampments were supported by the Tianji pillar, and the heaven and earth spiritual qi was rich enough for the spirit stream realm cultivators to cultivate. In the Cloud River battlefield, there were all kinds of spirit lots and spirit lands, which could also allow cultivators to grow quickly. At the true lake realm, the spirit lots could still be used. Moreover, it was more convenient for cultivators to obtain spirit lots than in the Cloud River battlefield. However, cultivators could not completely rely on spirit lots for their cultivation. In the end, these things still needed to be exchanged with battle merits. Therefore, true lake realm cultivators also had their own unique cultivation method. Before leaving the Jade Blood sect, Shui Yuan had told Lu Yi about this. This method of cultivation didn't consume spirit sticks, nor did it consume battle merits. Instead, it consumed merit points. Regiment in the bamboo house, Lu Yi recalled Shui Yuan's teachings. She raised her hand and tapped on the battlefield imprint. Her mind moved slightly and connected with the Tianji. In the next instant, a message exploded in her mind. The battlefield imprint on the back of her hand heated up slightly, and a rotating vortex suddenly appeared in front of her. As soon as the vortex formed, extremely rich heaven and earth spiritual qi surged out. The heaven and earth spiritual qi spread out in the room as if it had a mind of its own, enveloping Lu Yi, Yi, and Hupa. Only then did it stop spreading out. Lu Yi had already constructed many small spirit-gathering funnels on the surface of his body. Through the small funnels, the heaven and earth spiritual qi flowed into his body and strengthened his foundation. Yi said, Lu Yi, this cultivation method is somewhat similar to using spirit lots. It is indeed similar. When using spirit lots to cultivate, it is also like this. When the spirit lots are crushed, a vortex appears and pure heaven and earth spiritual qi surges out from the vortex. It is unknown where this heaven and earth spiritual qi comes from, but there is clearly a Tianji operating within. In comparison, using spirit lots to attract heaven and earth spiritual qi was much purer. Cultivators almost did not need to refine it. They could directly absorb it and turn it into their own spiritual qi. Therefore, using spirit lots to cultivate was the fastest way for cultivators to increase their cultivation. However, although the heaven and earth spiritual qi in front of them was rich enough, it needed to be refined by cultivators. The efficiency of cultivation was not as good as using spirit lots. Using spirit lots to cultivate consumed spirit lots. Cultivating in front of them consumed merits. Under Lu Ye's observation, his merits were slowly decreasing. This was also the reason why he felt a slight heat on the back of his hand. Chapter 892. Lu Yi observed for a while and noticed that the reduction of merit points was very slow. At this rate, if he continued cultivating for a day or night, he would not spend more than 5,000 merit points. 5,000 merit points was naturally nothing to Lu Yi, but a cultivator's cultivation was not a matter of a day or two, but years and months. 5,000 merit points a day, that would be 150,000 merit points a month, and 1,800,000 merit points a year. This number was somewhat terrifying. The richness of the heaven and earth spirit qi was comparable to that of the grade of spiritual land in Huitian Valley. Lu Yi naturally would not be satisfied with such an environment, and immediately moved his mind. In the next moment, the world energy gushing out from the whirlpool suddenly became denser, and correspondingly, the reduction of merit points also became faster. Using one's merit points to open a whirlpool that could gush out dense world energy, this was a cultivation method unique to cultivators above the true lake stage. In the 9 continents, this cultivation method was known as borrowing heaven's secrets. During this process, the amount of world energy gushing out from the vortex could be adjusted as one wished. The price one had to pay was nothing more than the speed at which one's contribution points were reduced. The denser the world energy drawn from the vortex, the faster one's contribution points would be reduced. Conversely, it was extremely convenient. Depending on the speed of the consumption of merit points, this cultivation method was divided into different levels. What Lu Yi needed to do now was to find a level that was most suitable for him. The higher the level, the denser the world energy, the faster the speed of cultivation. Everyone had their own limits. If the density of the world energy exceeded the cultivator's refining speed, then there would be unnecessary wastage. No one's merit points came from the wind. But if the density of the world energy was slower than the cultivator's refining speed, then it would imperceptibly reduce the cultivator's cultivation efficiency. Normally, cultivators who had just entered the true lake stage would choose the most basic first level, because this was enough to satisfy their cultivation needs. But this was obviously not suitable for Lu Yi. He had constructed many small funnels around him, and his refining speed of the world energy was much faster than ordinary true lake stage cultivators. The second level was also not enough. Only when the world energy gushing out from the whirlpool was adjusted to the third level did Lu Yi feel that it was enough. This level was usually chosen by cultivators above the true lake stage 6th order. As for the higher levels, that was something that only advanced true lake stage cultivators could do. After that, there were levels suitable for divine sea realm cultivators. Of course, the higher the level, the greater the consumption. Lu Yi checked the rate at which his merit points were being consumed. It was about twice as fast as before. In other words, if he were to maintain such a cultivation environment, then he would have to spend 10,000 merit points a day and night, which would be 300,000 merit points a month. Of course, he wouldn't be able to cultivate for a long time, but even if he only cultivated for half a month, it would still cost him 150,000 merit points. Lu Yi had a lot of merit points. When he found out about the cultivation method of the true lake stage from Shui Yuan, he specially went to the Jade Blood Sect's treasure house to sell some items to the Tianji treasure house. This allowed him to amass a total of 500,000 merit points. Previously, he had bought some meat for the two of them, so he still had about 480,000 left. This was not a small number, but it could at most support Lu Ye's cultivation for 2 or 3 months. At that time, he would have to return to the Blue Blood sect again. It wasn't a troublesome matter. Such a cultivation method was undoubtedly very convenient. Cultivators of the 9 continents true lake stage and above, no matter where they were, could connect to Tianji and open a whirlpool, creating a suitable cultivation environment for themselves. This way, they would have fewer restrictions. It was unlike the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, where they had to be in their own sect's encampment or spiritual land to enjoy such convenience. Moreover, they could stop at any time, so it wouldn't cause too much waste. This was incomparable to using spirit sticks to cultivate. Using spirit sticks to cultivate, once it started, it couldn't be stopped. Therefore, merit points were extremely important to any cultivator, especially those in the big sections. Only with enough merit points could cultivators of the true lake stage and above continuously increase their cultivation, strengthening the foundation of the big sections. Previously, the Blue Blood sect had very few people. The sect was desolate and there was almost no income. Therefore, even with Shui Yuan's outstanding talent, she couldn't step into the Divine Sea stage. This was because there was no way to obtain merit points. It wasn't until Lu Yi gave her the soul-cleansing water and brought great benefits to the sect that Shui Yuan soared. Because she had sufficient resources, she didn't have to worry about cultivation anymore. The inheritance of a big sect required unity from top to bottom. Those at the top protected those at the bottom, while those at the bottom worked hard to grow. They also created and brought wealth to the sect. They relied on each other and shared glory and disgrace. Lu Yi didn't try to see what the fourth level of cultivation environment was like. To him, since the current cultivation environment was enough to satisfy his cultivation needs, if he chose the next level of cultivation environment, there would be unnecessary waste. Beside him, Yi and Hupa had already started cultivating. He seemed to have nothing to do. He simply took out the fire spirit rock and activated the power of the talent tree to continuously devour it. The fire spirit rock contained extremely pure fire spiritual energy, which was the power that the talent tree craved. Although the benefits that a piece of fire spirit rock brought to the talent tree were far less than a lump of fire spirit rock. But he also thought that once the number of S-grade questions was enough, it would be enough to solve many problems. Very quickly, the fire spirit rock in his hand was exhausted and turned into powder. Lu Yi hurriedly took out another piece. As time passed, his merit points and the fire spirit rock were constantly consumed. Although the cultivation process was monotonous, Lu Yi didn't feel bored because he was looking forward to it. He really wanted to know what the talent tree would look like after this transformation. However, he didn't forget his duty as a patrol officer. Since he had received his monthly salary, he naturally had to fulfill his duties. So, he would take out 2 hours every day to patrol around with Yi and Hupa. Even though he knew that this was purely a formality, 2 days later, while Lu Yi was cultivating, he suddenly felt the battlefield mark on the back of his hand heat up slightly. He quickly immersed himself in investigating. Name: Luya. Identity: Blue Blood Sect Disciple, Great Moon Pass Ash Flame Mountain Pass Guard, Great Moon Pass Ash Flame Mountain Pass Patrol Guard. Cultivation: First Order True Lake Realm. Location: Ash Flame Mountain Pass, War Province. Merit: 465,632 points. Military merit: 394,650 points. Lu Yi was stunned. He took a closer look to make sure that he wasn't seeing things. The military merit column was indeed more than 390,000 points. How could this be? He clearly remembered that his military merit should be 88,410 points. In the past few days, he had been cultivating in Ash Flame Mountain Pass and patrolling around. He hadn't done anything else, so how could he suddenly have more than 300,000 military merit? Such a huge amount of military merit could only be compared to the harvest in Immortal Essence City. At that time, he also obtained 300,000 military merit, but that was from killing the insect race. It was a merit that could be traced back. So, what was this 300,000 military merit all about? Lu Yi wasn't happy. Instead, he felt that something was wrong. The Heaven's Secret was known to be fair and just. Previously, the missing Moon Immortal had given him a bunch of random tasks. It seemed like she was tormenting him, but in fact, she was trying to find a way to increase his military merit. Lu Yi felt that such a method was inappropriate. Sooner or later, something would happen. Suddenly, he had more than 300,000 military merit. This was the prelude to something big. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yi had some guesses in his heart. If things were as he thought, it might be fine, but if things weren't as he thought, then it would be troublesome. He hurriedly stopped his cultivation and flashed out of the bamboo building to look for the missing Moon Immortal. After searching for a long time, he couldn't find her. He didn't know where she had run off to. Helpless, he could only contact her through Wei Ling. There was still no reply. Just as Lu Yi was at his wit's end, this woman suddenly appeared in front of him like a ghost. Looking at her posture, it seemed like she had fought with someone not long ago. Her hair was a little disheveled. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. He immediately understood what she had done. Clearly, she had gone to find trouble with Wan Zhanggang. He didn't know if she had taken advantage of him. What is it? The missing moon immortal spoke, her expression still as cold as ice. My lord, this humble servant suddenly has an additional military merit. This is a good thing. Is there a problem? The amount is too large. This humble servant is uneasy. The missing moon immortal immediately understood what he was worried about. He was afraid that she had used her authority to give him military merit. You deserve it. Don't worry. Lu Yi frowned. My lord, please explain. The missing moon immortal explained slowly. 1mo Ridge's lone mountain city was attacked by the fire spirit race. The losses were not small. You were the one who lured the fire spirit race over, so the military merit naturally belongs to you. On top of that, you saved my life, which is another great merit. A few days ago, I asked Tianji to reward you for your merit, so this is what you deserve. Lu Yi was stunned. The fire spirit race attacking Lone Mountain City is also my merit? Why not? Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. The fire spirit race was created by him, Ying Wuji, and the others, and they led the fire spirit race to the Lone Mountain Pass. Because of this, the Lone Mountain Pass suffered a great loss. Relatively speaking, they had contributed to the Grand Heaven Alliance. With his true lake stage cultivation, he used all sorts of methods to save the missing moon immortal under the eyes of 3 spirit sea stage cultivators. This was an even greater merit. If this matter was reported to Grand Heaven City, there would definitely be rewards. However, the missing moon immortal knew that Lu Yi should not be too ostentatious now. Therefore, she only asked Tianji to reward him with military merit. She did not report this matter to Grand Heaven City. How much military merit did they give you? The missing moon immortal did not want to ask, but she could not resist her curiosity. More than 300,000. Lu Yi reported honestly. Not bad. The missing moon immortal said indifferently. She turned and left. However, there was a trace of shock in her eyes. She knew that Lu Ye's harvest this time would not be small. However, she did not expect it to be so much. Tianji seemed to favor this little guy. Chapter 893. Lu Ye's worries were swept away when he found out that the merit points were granted by Tianji and not the missing moon immortal using her authority. How wonderful! He turned to look in the direction of Tianji Hall. The treasure he wanted could finally be obtained. He hurried to Tianji Hall and pressed his hand on the Tianji pillar, connecting his mind to the War Merit Pavilion. In the next instant, he appeared in front of the War Merit Pavilion's simple doors. Lu Yi was naturally excited to suddenly obtain such a huge amount of merit points. After arriving, he raised his hand and pushed the doors open. Sensing his arrival, the golden and silver flood dragons had just poked their heads out when they were pressed back down by him. The doors were heavy, but it didn't take much effort to push them open. Only when the doors were completely open did Lu Yi realize that something wasn't right. He wasn't in a hurry to enter the War Merit Pavilion. Instead, he stood at the door and looked around. The golden and silver flood dragons popped their heads out again. The silver flood dragon was overjoyed. Kid, what delicious food did you bring this time? Bring my s. He had just fed them 2 days ago, but he didn't know why the silver flood dragon always looked like a hungry ghost reincarnated. Moreover, he was in a hurry to buy that soul tool today and completely forgot to bring meat for the 2 flood dragons. Compared to this, Lu Yi was more concerned about another matter. He pondered for a moment and said, "This door, doesn't it require the 2 of you to work together to open it?" The first time he came, the 2 flood dragons wriggled and twisted above the door, turning into a concentric circle. Then the door slowly opened. This caused Lu Yi to have a preconceived notion that the opening and closing of the door was controlled by the 2 flood dragons. But now, it seemed that this wasn't the case. Tianji had already given him the authority to enter the War Merit Pavilion. He could enter and leave at will without the 2 flood dragons doing anything. Hearing Lu Ye's question, the silver flood dragon couldn't help but be stunned. It didn't know how to explain and could only look at the golden flood dragon. The golden flood dragon's dignified voice sounded. Of course not, but we can also open it. Lu Yi was puzzled. Then, every time before you open the door, why do you cross each other and twist into a concentric circle? He thought that the diagram was the key to opening the door. The golden flood dragon was momentarily speechless. The silver flood dragon's eyes also turned anxiously. Lu Yi roughly understood what they were thinking and found it funny, but he didn't interrupt them. He just cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your trouble." As he spoke, he entered the Hall of Battle Merits and headed straight for the stone platform where the soul armament was. "Big brother, this brat found out. What should we do?" The silver dragon asked anxiously. "If he knows that he won't need us to open the door in the future, I'm afraid he won't bring us any more delicious food." "I don't think so. This brat doesn't look like the kind of person who would burn bridges after crossing the river." The golden flood dragon looked calm on the surface, but he was a little annoyed in his heart. He couldn't figure out how he had been discovered. The kid who had come in last time hadn't noticed anything for many years. "Big brother, it's a lake. Humans are the most treacherous. This brat looks honest and considerate, but who knows what kind of character he has. We can't expect him to be merciful." "You're thinking of?" The golden flood dragon looked up at the silver flood dragon. A look of determination flashed across the silver flood dragon's eyes. "Since we've been discovered, we can only do that. Otherwise, wouldn't it be sad if we couldn't even smell the scent of blood in the future?" The golden flood dragon pondered for a moment and sighed. "Then let's do it." The two flood dragons' conversation was silent. Lu Yi, who was in the War Merit Pavilion, naturally didn't know. At this moment, he was standing in front of a stone platform, looking at a small pagoda-like treasure on the stone platform. The pagoda was divided into 9 levels and was small and exquisite. Most importantly, this pagoda didn't look like a real thing, but was constantly changing between illusion and reality. Soul artifact, soul-suppressing pagoda. Being both illusion and reality, this was the characteristic of most soul artifacts. This was because soul artifacts were things that cultivators stored in their divine sea. This kind of thing was extremely difficult to refine. Even for those divine sea cultivators, it was extremely difficult to obtain a soul artifact. For example, the golden lock that Thought Moon Immortal had given to Lu Yi before. Although it had the ability to protect the soul to a certain extent, it was far from the level of a soul artifact. This item was rare and extremely expensive. 108,888 battle merits. This price left Lu Yi speechless. He felt that Heaven's Secret had a bit of a bad taste. Otherwise, why would he come up with such a price? Without hesitation, he exchanged for it. Immediately, the corresponding number of battle merits decreased, leaving him with only 25,762 battle merits. The seal on the stone platform disappeared. Lu Yi raised his hand and grabbed the soul-suppressing pagoda. His spiritual will surged and enveloped the soul-suppressing pagoda. Lu Yi could clearly feel that the small soul-suppressing pagoda was showing signs of perfect integration with his spiritual will. As he retracted his spiritual will, the soul-suppressing pagoda also disappeared, as if it was never there. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. With so many battle merits in his hands, he could finally get his hands on the things that he wanted to buy but couldn't bear to. There were many treasures in the War Merit Pavilion. Previously, Lu Yi had a lot of battle merits, but because he was in a hurry to reach the true lake stage, he used them all to exchange for the golden spiritual lot. He could only look at the treasures with different uses and reluctantly part with them. Now that he had the capital, he could naturally shout that he wanted them all. Battle platform, 11,000 battle merits, exchange. Tracking plate, 30,000 battle merits, exchange. Deity vanquishing sword, 26,000 battle merits, exchange. After purchasing all the treasures, he was left with about 140,000 battle merits. Lu Yi had never experienced the feeling of being so rich. In the past, he had the opportunity to obtain large amounts of battle merits, but they were quickly spent. Unlike this time, he still had a large surplus after exchanging for so many treasures. He didn't use the remaining battle merits. His cultivation had already reached the true lake stage, so he wasn't in a hurry to improve. He didn't stay any longer and walked out of the War Merit Pavilion. Just as he reached the entrance, he was stopped by the Silver Flood Dragon. "Senior, what can I do for you?" Lu Yi was in a hurry to go back and check out the power of the soul-suppressing pagoda. Naturally, he didn't want to stay here any longer. Even though he didn't bring any food for the 2 flood dragons this time, it had only been 2 to 3 days since his last visit. Moreover, he fed the 2 flood dragons on his own accord. No one asked him to do so. The 2 flood dragons wouldn't make things difficult for him because of this. The Silver Flood Dragon tried its best to act mysterious. "Kid, the last time you came, I noticed that you had already nurtured a soul body and formed a spiritual will." "That's right." Lu Yi nodded. He still didn't know what it wanted to do. Spiritual will has always been exclusive to divine ocean stage cultivators. "Even though I don't know what kind of opportunity you had, or what kind of fortune you had to be able to form a spiritual will as a true lake god, have you thought about it? If you meet a divine ocean stage cultivator, you'll still be an ant that can be easily crushed. You won't be able to defend against a divine ocean stage cultivator's spiritual will attack." Fantuan read. "Yes." Lu Yi agreed. Thinking back to when he was attacked by Wan Zhanggang's spiritual will, he immediately fell into a coma. He couldn't help but feel a little guilty. If you didn't form a spiritual will, then it's fine. At most, your soul would be injured. But since you've formed a spiritual will, you must have a divine ocean. If you encounter a divine ocean stage cultivator's spiritual will attack again, it won't be as simple as your soul being injured. It's very likely that your divine ocean will shatter and you'll never be able to step into the divine ocean stage again. The Silver Flood Dragon's tone gradually became serious. Lu Yi kept nodding as he listened. "Senior is right." In the jade slip that the Thought Moon Immortal gave him, this was also the reason why Lu Yi was so eager to exchange for the soul-suppressing pagoda. As a true lake god, it seemed like a good thing to nurture a soul body and form a spiritual will. In fact, it also increased his own risk. He had to guard against that possibility as soon as possible. "Senior, what do you want to say?" The Silver Flood Dragon circled back and forth. Lu Yi really didn't know what he wanted to do. The Silver Flood Dragon chuckled. "Kid, do you want to know? Is there any way to protect your divine ocean?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yi took out the soul-suppressing pagoda. "Will this work?" The Silver Flood Dragon's eyes widened. He didn't expect Lu Yi to buy this treasure. He was speechless for a moment. After a long while, he muttered, "This is possible." If this thing didn't work, then there was no treasure in this world that could protect one's soul. He hurriedly looked up at the Golden Flood Dragon. The Golden Flood Dragon understood and said majestically, "Although this thing is wonderful, it can only suppress the inside, not the outside." Lu Yi put away the soul-suppressing pagoda and looked at the Golden Flood Dragon solemnly. "Senior, please enlighten me." The Golden Flood Dragon said, "This thing is called the soul-suppressing pagoda. If you refine it, it can guard your divine ocean. In the future, when you encounter a spiritual will attack, no matter how strong the enemy is, it can ensure that your divine ocean remains unperturbed and unbreakable. However, this thing only has this effect. It can't guard against spiritual will attacks. So, do you understand?" Lu Yi came to a realization, that is to say, even if this thing can guard my divine ocean and prevent it from being broken, it will still be able to withstand attacks. The Golden Flood Dragon had a teachable look on his face. Lu Yi's good mood was instantly reduced by half. If this was really the case, then the soul-suppressing pagoda was inferior to the golden lock that the Thought Moon Immortal gave him. Although the golden lock wasn't a soul tool, it could more or less defend against spiritual will attacks. Lu Yi originally thought that with the soul-suppressing pagoda, he would no longer have to worry about spiritual will attacks from divine ocean cultivators in the future, but now it seemed that the soul-suppressing pagoda's effect was far from what he had imagined. If a real warrior of the Spirit Sea realm were to see the barricade of the soul, he would be able to see all the effects of the barricade of the soul. He wouldn't be like Lu Yi, who thought that with the barricade of the soul, he would even dare to fight against a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm. The two flood dragons suddenly talking to him about this and mentioning something about internal and external defense, Lu Yi couldn't help but have some guesses. He immediately respectfully asked, "Senior, may I ask what method you have to defend against spiritual will attacks?" "Then you've asked the right person." The silver flood dragon instantly became complacent. "The two of us find you quite pleasing to the eye, so we've decided to teach you a secret technique specifically for protecting your soul. It can also be considered as repayment for all the things you've done before." "How could I accept this?" Although Lu Yi said this, he simply cupped his fists and said, "I dare not refuse an elder's gift." "Then, I thank the two of you for your kindness." The silver flood dragon looked at him speechlessly. For the first time, he found that this kid in front of him was a bit thick-skinned. He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. Chapter 894. The golden flood dragon's dignified voice rang out. "Although it is called a secret technique, it is actually a method, but to use this method, you must have a certain degree of trust in the two of us. If you don't trust us, you will not be able to use it." "I trust you." Lu Yi nodded decisively. The golden flood dragon did not know how to respond for a while. Originally, it thought that if Lu Yi did not agree, it would have to say a few words of persuasion, but now there was no need to waste its breath. However, he still had to warn him, "Kid, when you go out and meet other people, you can't be so naive. Who knows when you'll suffer a big loss. Are you sure that us two brothers don't have any evil intentions towards you?" Being called naive for the first time, Lu Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Although I don't know why the two of you are trapped here or how long you have been here, this place should not be accessible to just anyone. If something happens to me, perhaps the two of you will have to wait a long time before someone comes to chat with you and relieve your boredom, so I believe that the two seniors will not harm me." Hearing these words, the silver flood dragon nodded repeatedly. "Boy, you really are a smart man." The golden flood dragon also sighed. "It seems you are not completely ignorant." The method they were about to use would cause a certain amount of damage to themselves. Pleasing Lu Yi so that he would often bring some food to eat in the future was secondary, but the most important thing was to protect Lu Yi. Just as Lu Yi said, they had been trapped here for too long. Although there were occasionally people blessed by the heavens who came here during this period, they disappeared without a trace after a few years. The last person who was qualified to come here was several decades ago. If something happened to Lu Yi, who knew how long they would have to wait for the next one? If not for this consideration, the two flood dragons would not have used such a method. "In that case, let's begin, boy, don't resist," the golden flood dragon shouted, and in the next moment, the two flood dragons' bodies released a bright light as their monster chi surged. Lu Yi only saw 2 points of light, one gold and one silver, suddenly fly out from the two flood dragons and crash straight into his head. With a buzzing sound, Lu Yi was almost unable to maintain the manifestation of his divine sense here. When he came back to his senses, he found that the two flood dragons in front of him were a little weak, as if they had been greatly injured. "The two of you are..." Lu Yi was confused. The golden flood dragon said weakly, "Go ahead. This secret skill is called Double Dragon Sea Protection. With the help of your barricading soul tower, one can defend the outside and the other can suppress the inside. You will be protected from both inside and outside. In the future, even if you are attacked by the spiritual will of a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm, you won't have to worry about dying on the spot." Lu Yi bowed solemnly. "Thank you for your kindness, seniors. I will visit you again next time." As he said this, his mind withdrew from this place. As soon as he left, the two weak flood dragons regained their vigor. The silver flood dragon said happily, "Big brother, I'm afraid that kid will be deeply grateful to us now. He won't have to worry about not having food in the future." The golden flood dragon reprimanded it. "It's been so many years, yet you're still so short-sighted. Do you only know how to eat?" The silver flood dragon felt a little wronged. "Being trapped here, if I don't think about eating, what else can I think about?" The golden Jiao dragon looked at it faintly. "You also said that we are trapped here. What should we think about?" The silver flood dragon pondered for a moment. and its body suddenly trembled. It realized the meaning of its big brother's words. Big brother, could it be that you have high hopes for him? Since ancient times, many heroes have come here, but none of them made it to the end. I'm not sure if he can make it to the end, but he came here with the lowest cultivation level. Furthermore, he nurtured his soul body with his true lake body and gave birth to his spiritual sense. Just this point alone is something that his ancestors can't compare to. Perhaps we should indeed have some expectations for him. The silver flood dragon fell into deep thought. After a while, it shook its head and said, "After being disappointed so many times, expectations become a luxury." Who knows? The two flood dragons retreated into the door, and the place fell into silence. In the Tianji Hall, Lu Ye's mind was immersed as he checked the changes in his deity ocean. There were no changes to his deity ocean. It was still the same deity's lake. However, what was different from before was that there was a small 9-story pagoda in his deity's lake. Outside the deity's lake, there were two dragon-like things that were connected head to tail. Gold and silver lights intersected to protect the deity's lake. This should be the technique that the golden and silver flood dragons used together, called the double dragon sea protection. The two dragon shadows were most likely the manifestation of the two flood dragons' spiritual sense. After observing for a while, Lu Yi felt a sense of security. In terms of spiritual sense protection, he now had 3 layers of techniques. The first layer was naturally the golden lock that the missing moon Immortal gave him. It had a certain degree of resistance, but its effect was limited. The second layer was the double dragon sea protection. With the gold and silver dragon shadows guarding the deity's lake, it would be impossible for a divine sea realm cultivator to break through his spiritual sense protection. Even if it was broken through, he still had the soul-suppressing pagoda to suppress the deity's lake. It could ensure that the deity's lake would not be broken. With these 3 layers of techniques, the difference between him and a divine sea realm cultivator was purely in terms of strength. The hidden danger in his heart had been eliminated, and he was in a good mood. As for what he said to the 2 flood dragons, it was naturally not everything. He didn't know where the 2 flood dragons came from, but they were definitely very powerful. They must be the top existences in the 9 regions, and he didn't know how many years they had lived. As the saying goes, people become shrewd with age, and demons were the same. How could Lu Yi trust them so easily? The reason why Lu Yi let them do what they wanted was not because he trusted them, but because he trusted Tianji. Tianji gave him the authority to enter and exit the War Merit Pavilion, and they were trapped in the War Merit Pavilion to guard the gate. There must be Tianji's way of operating. If they really had any unfavorable thoughts or practices, Tianji would punish them. It turned out that he had indeed benefited from them. He had improved the protection of his spiritual sense to the extreme. After leaving the Tianji Hall, Lu Yi went to the front of the missing moon Immortal's bamboo house. He spread out his divine thoughts and sensed the breath of the missing moon Immortal from the bamboo house. After confirming that she was here, he cupped his fists and said, "Sir, I want to take a day off." "What are you going to do?" The voice of the missing moon Immortal came out from the bamboo house, but there was no sign of her. "I want to go back to Haotian City to be promoted." The rank of a soldier was directly related to the number of military merits a cultivator had obtained. Whether the cultivator used these military merits or not, it would not be affected. Wei Wei's accumulated military merits were 500,000. He had reached this point before, so the initial military rank he got from the official department of Haotian City was Wei Wei. The next rank was senior captain, which required a total of 1 million military merits. Lu Yi was not sure how many military merits he had obtained before, but after this, he should have at least 1 million, which was enough for him to be promoted. The reason why he was so anxious was naturally because it was related to the amount of his monthly salary. A Wei Wei's monthly salary was 20,000 military merits, while a senior captain's salary was 30,000 military merits. Moreover, he had 2 positions. In other words, after being promoted, his monthly salary would be 60,000 military merits, which could be exchanged for 4 golden spiritual sticks. Things like military ranks were naturally meant to be enjoyed as soon as possible. Therefore, he could delay his cultivation for a while. Moreover, with his current speed, a round trip to Haotian City would only take 1 day and 1 night. It would not delay him too much. Go on, there's no need to rush back. After bidding farewell to the missing moon Immortal, Lu Yi identified the direction, took out his spiritual boat, and flew towards Haotian City. It seemed like he had just arrived from Haotian City not long ago. At most, it would be slightly more than a month. After advancing to the true lake realm, his flying speed was also much faster. Along the way, Lu Yi looked relaxed and was not in a hurry. While flying, he did not forget to take out the fire spirit rock and activate the talent tree's power to engulf it. For hours later, he was already far away from Tsangyen Mountain Pass. When he passed by a spiritual mountain, Lu Yi suddenly felt something. He looked down and saw a figure standing on top of the spiritual mountain. After sizing up, Lu Yi frowned. It was not that he recognized this person, but this person was wearing a white mask. Under the mask, he was looking in Lu Ye's direction. Obviously, he was looking at Lu Yi. Many cultivators like to wear masks. Some did it because they did not want others to see their true face, while others deliberately mystified themselves. Lu Yi was the former. In the 9 regions, there were all kinds of strange patterns on masks. There were also such white masks. However, if there was a red and blue pattern on the left and right sides of the white mask, it would be unusual. Lu Yi had seen such a mask before. That was in the Cloud River battlefield. On his way to the 100 Formation Pagoda, he was being chased by many cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge. When he passed by a place called the Pai River, a woman wearing a mask like this appeared out of nowhere and helped him. The strength that the woman displayed was far beyond an ordinary Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. After that, Lu Yi realized that the woman was not a Cloud River realm cultivator, but a true Lake realm cultivator. That woman should belong to a mysterious organization. This organization was very resourceful and could set up many secret strongholds in the Cloud River battlefield. They could set up teleportation arrays, and could even send cultivators above the Cloud River tier into the Cloud River battlefield like the Tianji Business Alliance. At that time, Lu Yi thanked her and asked for her name. The woman did not answer and only said that she was following orders. She insisted on forcing Lu Yi to return to the 9 regions because there were too many people chasing after him. Lu Yi naturally did not comply. The two of them even had a conflict. However, during the fight, some seal in the woman's body seemed to have broken, and her true cultivation was revealed. She was then expelled from the Cloud River battlefield. Not much time had passed, and this experience was still fresh in Lu Ye's mind. Naturally, he would not forget it. After that incident, he always felt that he would meet people from this organization again. He never thought that he would meet them here. Lu Yi himself often wore a mask to do things, so he naturally knew what these people were thinking. This place was the only way back to Grand Sky City from the Blue Flame Mountain Pass. The other party had obviously been waiting here for a long time. Moreover, this location was very subtle. It was between the Blue Flame Mountain Pass and Grand Sky City. If anything happened here, neither Grand Sky City nor the Blue Flame Mountain Pass would be aware. The other party was obviously waiting here because they were afraid of the Thought Moon Immortal and the Masters of Grand Sky City. Chapter 895. Lu Yi naturally did not have a good impression of such sneaky behavior. His instincts told him not to get involved with the people of this organization. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome. As for the favor of the mysterious woman for saving his life, there was no way he could talk about it. Even without her help, Lu Yi was confident that he could escape. It could even be said that her appearance had complicated things. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Lu Yi immediately retracted his gaze. While he was secretly on guard, he prepared to fly over. Since the other party dared to appear here so openly, there was a high chance that they were from the Grand Heaven Alliance. There was no need to worry about being interrogated. "Are you Lu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow cultivator Lu?" the person below shouted. "No." Lu Yi replied decisively. Then, under the other party's stunned gaze, he quickly flew away. The other party did not show any signs of pursuing him. They merely watched him leave. Lu Yi frowned. The situation was somewhat different from what he had imagined, however, he did not care. If the other party did not pursue him, it would save him some trouble. It was more important to get to Grand Heaven City and get promoted. After flying for a while, Lu Yi suddenly felt that something was not right. The surrounding scenery was too familiar. It was as if he had seen it before. When he looked up again, he saw an even more familiar spirit peak in front of him. On top of that spirit peak, a figure stood. He wore a white mask. Lu Ye's expression could not help but turn serious. As expected, something was not right. Before he got close, the person in the distance shouted, "Are you Lu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow cultivator Lu?" It was as if time had turned back, and he had experienced what he had just experienced once again. This time, Lu Yi did not even bother to reply. He directly turned around and flew in another direction. A moment later, he encountered that spirit peak again. When he saw the cultivator on top of that spirit peak again, he asked patiently, "Are you Lu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow cultivator Lu?" Lu Yi looked at him deeply. When he met the mischievous gaze under that person's mask, how could he not know that he had fallen into someone else's trap? He ignored that person and turned in another direction. He activated the Insight Spirit Tattoo to enhance his eyes. As he flew, he observed. He kept experiencing the same scene, meeting the same person on the same spiritual peak, and hearing the same words. Lu Yi originally thought that he had fallen into some kind of great array, but after careful observation for a long time, he was sure that this was not a great array. This was because even if it was a great array, with his current attainments in the Array Dao and Insight Spirit inscriptions, he could still see some clues. But in reality, he still hadn't found any traces of the formation. Since it wasn't a formation, it had to be a treasure. Like the Nine-Front Formation, it was a treasure that could create a space of its own. Lu Yi was secretly on guard. Although he was only a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, he had already developed his divine sense, so his perception was extremely sharp. Being able to trap him here without him noticing meant that the one who did this must be a spirit-withered sea realm cultivator. The person who shouted at him previously was not in the spiritual sea stage, but was only in the true lake stage. In other words, there was an expert behind this person. "Are you Lu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow Taoist Lu?" Lu Yi landed in front of him and looked him up and down. She nodded slightly and said, "Yes, it's me." The other party had already made a move and had identified him, so there was no point in denying it. "I've heard a lot about you." The man cupped his fists in greeting. "What's the matter?" "My family, sir, wants to see fellow Taoist." "Your family, sir?" Lu Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. "Since you want to see me, why do you have to hide? Let's do it openly. There are some reasons that I can't explain, so I hope fellow Taoist can forgive me." The masked cultivator lowered his head slightly, as if apologizing. "Lead the way." The masked cultivator said, "But before that, I have to test fellow Taoist's methods and see if fellow Taoist is qualified to meet sir." He spoke politely, but Lu Yi was amused. "Your family, sir, wants to see me, but before that, he wants to see my abilities? Fellow Taoist, please forgive me." "Forgive me or not. You have to survive first. Do you really think I'm made of mud that can be manipulated by others?" As soon as he finished speaking, the graceful saber light had already slashed down. The masked cultivator obviously didn't expect Lu Yi to suddenly make a move, so he hurriedly took out his spirit artifact and placed it in front of him. In the next moment, his expression changed. Originally, when he saw that Lu Yi was only a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, he didn't pay much attention to him. Even though he had inquired about Lu Yi before and knew that he was good at killing enemies above his realm, he had already given him a very high evaluation. But after they really fought, he discovered that Lu Ye's foundation was much deeper than he had expected. Copious and irresistible strength wrapped in incomparably violent spirit energy, Lu Yi, with his saber in hand, carried the saber intent of the tyrant saber art. A strong sense of oppression and invasion swept over, causing the masked cultivator's chest to tighten for a moment. One had to know that his cultivation was several minor realms higher than Lu Ye's. Such monstrous strength, such a foundation, he was simply a monster. He couldn't help but be shocked. Ding ding dang dang dang. The sound of spirit artifacts colliding rang out continuously, and the masked cultivator was forced to retreat step by step. For a moment he was suppressed, until a crashing sound rang out, and the saber in Lu Ye's hand shattered. His mountain coiling saber was still in the process of being upgraded. The saber he had just summoned was a saber similar to the mountain coiling saber. It was unknown where he had obtained it from. In terms of quality, it was only a high-grade spirit artifact, so how could it withstand Lu Ye's fierce slashes? The masked cultivator's attack suddenly slowed. Although Lu Ye took out another saber in the next moment, the masked cultivator was still a true Lake Realm cultivator, so he naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. Just as he was about to counterattack, his figure suddenly paused. In the next moment, he hurriedly retreated and shouted, "Fellow Taoist Lu, the future is long. Farewell." As if he had received some instructions, he had already retreated. Lu Ye still wanted to pursue, but an astonishing force swept over from the front. He hurriedly stopped, and the force blasted him back several dozen meters before he could stabilize himself. When he looked up again, there was no trace of the masked cultivator. He had long since fled. The surrounding scenery seemed to distort, and Lu Ye knew in his heart that the method of the master behind him had failed. Standing in the same place, Lu Ye frowned and cursed his bad luck. He didn't know who the divine sea realm cultivator behind him was, but it was obvious that this person had blocked him. However, the other party didn't have the intention to kill him, otherwise, he would have already shown himself. However, the other party said that he wanted to see him, but left in a hurry. He didn't know what happened. He couldn't figure it out, but he was too lazy to think about it. He would definitely come into contact with this mysterious organization again in the future, and sooner or later, the truth would come out. After determining the direction, he once again rushed towards Grand Sky City. This time, it was extremely smooth, and the previous time reversal situation didn't occur. 100 miles away, two figures stood. One was the masked cultivator, and the other was a spirited old man. Thinking back to the short exchange with Lu Ye just now, the masked cultivator still had a look of shock on his face. This was because his cultivation was several levels higher than Lu Ye's, but he didn't gain the slightest advantage. This meant that if it was a life and death battle, he might not be Lu Ye's opponent. This was too exaggerated. How could a person's foundation be so strong? One had to know that he himself was an elite of a sect who could kill enemies above his level. "My lord, is the thought moon immortal here?" He restrained the distracting thoughts in his mind and asked. "No. If not, then why did he leave in such a hurry? Didn't my lord want to see him?" "There's no need." The old man shook his head slowly. The reason why he wanted to see Lu Ye was to test his foundation. This point had already been verified just now. He could be said to be shockingly talented and completely met the organization's requirements to recruit him. The second reason was to investigate Lu Ye's temperament. The old man had already made some judgments about this matter. Since his goal had been achieved, there was naturally no need to meet him. If he really did meet him, it would only increase Lu Ye's disgust, and the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. This time, this old man was wrong. The old man stroked his beard. Although he was a spirit sea realm cultivator, he didn't mind his mistakes at all. "I thought he was just a kid who had just reached true lake realm, and a little trick would be enough to make him look up to me. I didn't want to overreach myself. It's fine if I don't meet him. This kid is arrogant and somewhat unruly. If you come into contact with him in the future, don't try to play any tricks, and treat him with sincerity." "Yes," the masked cultivator replied respectfully. "Then about recruiting him, the time hasn't come yet. A person like him will see the problem sooner or later. When the time comes, he will naturally have the same philosophy as us. If that's the case, even if we don't recruit him, he'll still be a comrade." The masked cultivator seemed to be deep in thought. "You may leave." The old man waved his hand. The masked cultivator cupped his fists and respectfully retreated. The old man raised his head and looked in the direction of the Jade Blood sect. He pondered for a moment, then flew up and headed straight for the Jade Blood sect. He hadn't seen that old man Tang Yifeng for many years. He didn't know how that old man was doing. Suddenly encountering such an incident delayed him a little, but the rest of his journey was smooth. In the evening, the huge Grand Heaven City came into view. After flying for a while, he finally arrived at Grand Heaven City. With his previous experience, Lu Yi naturally wouldn't look for the city gate, but went straight in. Compared to the last time he was here, Grand Heaven City was undoubtedly much quieter. The number of cultivators coming and going was also not as high as before. The last time was a special situation. The realm fusion that was hard to come by in many years was encountered by this generation of Cloud River tier cultivators. A large number of Cloud River tier cultivators had nowhere to go, so they all flocked into Grand Heaven City and were then sent to various passes. In the various passes, the number of Cloud River tier cultivators was much higher than before. Only Blue Flame Mountain Pass was special. Including Hu Pe, there were only 4 members. He flew into Grand Heaven City, and based on his memory of the last time he was here, he went straight in the direction of the Department of Official Affairs. Before he reached the Department of Official Affairs, a familiar figure suddenly flew in front of him. It was the head of the Department of Law, Jianghu. He was also the guy who threw him into the punishment prison last time. When Lu Yi saw him from afar, he couldn't help but shrink his neck. He wanted to change direction and avoid this person. Chapter 896. However, as soon as he raised his head, he saw Qian Wudong looking at him with a smile. The distance between them was quickly closing. Lu Yi had no choice but to fly over. He cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, milord." Qian Wudong stood 10 meters away from Lu Yi with his hands behind his back. He glanced at Lu Yi and nodded. "Not bad. You're really here. Why you here?" "I have some personal matters to deal with," Lu Yi replied casually without explaining too much. Qian Wudong smiled and said, "When you get back to Tsangyin Mountain Pass, send my regards to your pass master. She came and left in a hurry a month ago and didn't even want to see me." "A month ago?" Lu Yi was stunned. Qian Wudong smiled meaningfully. "That's when you were locked up in the prison. How else do you think you got to Tsangyin Mountain Pass?" Lu Yi didn't know about this. However, Qian Wudong didn't want to explain too much. He just said a few words and flew away from Lu Yi. Lu Yi was left alone to think. According to Qian Wudong's words, Lu Ye's trip to Tsangyin Mountain was directly related to Nian Yuxian's visit to Haotian City. It seemed that Nian Yuxian had asked for him from the recruitment department. There were numerous mountain passes on the defensive line of the military province, yet he just so happened to head to such a special place like Azure Flame Mountain Pass. Moreover, Yearning Moon Immortal had been guarding it all by herself for a few tens of years before that. Perhaps second senior sister had contributed to it. The two women had a good relationship. There was no one on the front line to take care of Lu Yi, so Nian Yuxian, the past master who had a relationship with the Blue Blood sect, took care of him. In an instant, Lu Yi had already thought through most of the cause and effect of the matter. However, it was impossible for him to know that for the sake of fighting over him, Moon Thought Immortal had completely offended another Divine Sea Realm cultivator and had even attacked him in public. Cultivators from the official department came and went frequently. They were all cultivators who had rushed back from various places. Like Lu Yi, they all had the same idea: to get promoted as soon as possible so that they could get more monthly pay. In the front line, military merits were often accumulated over time. The conflicts and battles with the Demon's Ridge weren't as frequent as expected. However, there were exceptions. The battles were extremely fierce. Both sides kept sending new people into the battlefield. In those places, military merits were increased, but there were also many people who died. After waiting for a moment in the official department, it was her turn. Lu Yi stepped forward and handed the guard token to the petite, round-faced female cultivator in charge of this matter. The female cultivator had promoted the ranks of countless cultivators every day, so she was naturally familiar with the process. She took the guard token and asked about Lu Ye's background. After checking the information in the guard token and confirming that there was no mistake, she asked Lu Yi to place the hand with the battlefield imprint on the battle merit plate to check how many battle merits he had accumulated. Just like last time, the colors on the battle merit plate constantly changed, and the female cultivator's calm expression also changed. The light that came out was yellow, which corresponded to the Wei Wei. This time, it was purple, which corresponded to the senior captain. It seemed that his calculations were correct. The military merits he accumulated were enough for him to get promoted. When he looked up, the beautiful eyes of the female cultivator who was handling this for him were filled with shock and admiration. In Grand Heaven Alliance, there were many cultivators with the rank of commandant. She had been handling military promotions here for a long time. Not to mention commandants, she had even seen some guards of higher ranks. But how could there be such a young commandant in this world? Because Lu Yi had been running around for a long time and had experienced many battles, he looked older than his actual age. But no matter how old he was only about 20 years old. A 20-year-old commandant, let alone seeing one, she had never even heard of one. And his cultivation was only at the first order True Lake realm. Generally speaking, in order to be promoted to the rank of senior captain, one would have to be at the late stage of the True Lake stage at the earliest. As for the ranks of Army Protector and Battalion Commander, they were all reserved for Spirit Ocean stage cultivators. There was no mention of any True Lake stage general being promoted to the rank of Army Protector. Because for this rank, it was not only the amount of military merits accumulated, but also the amount of military merits. Perhaps a True Lake Realm cultivator could rely on his monthly salary to accumulate enough military merits. But if his military merits were not great enough, he would not be promoted to a guard or camp leader. A commandant who was not even 20 years old and was only at the first order True Lake Realm. The female cultivator had been here for so many years, but this was the first time she saw Lu Yi. It was inevitable that she was shocked and puzzled. She could not understand what Lu Yi had done to accumulate so many military merits. Senior sister? Lu Yi saw that she was in a daze and could not help but call out. The female cultivator came back to her senses and said apologetically, "I'll be done soon." Then, she took Lu Ye's guard token and quickly returned it to him. "Junior brother Lu, check it and make sure there are no mistakes." Lu Yi took his guard token and poured his spirit energy into it. After confirming that the guard token was emitting a purple glow, he kept it and nodded to the female cultivator. "Thank you, senior sister." Under the shocked gazes of the nearby cultivators, he left leisurely. It wasn't until he left that the female cultivator revealed a vexed expression. Just now, she had been so shocked that she had forgotten to add her imprint to Lu Ye's. Such a handsome young talent. If she had some of the beautiful junior sisters in the sect come into contact with him more, perhaps she would be able to obtain some benefits. As for herself, she was already married and had someone to protect, so naturally, she did not have any other thoughts. The sky was already dark, so Lu Yi did not plan to continue his journey. He took a day off from Yan Yuxian, and Yan Yuxian also told him not to rush back. Anyway, there was no war in Blue Flame Mountain Pass for a long time, so he could stay in Grand Sky City for a few more days, or even go back to Blue Blood Sect to take a look. Grand Sky City was not only the center of Grand Sky Alliance in the War Province, but there were also many restaurants, tea houses, and even various shops in the city, mainly for the convenience of the cultivators who came and went. Moreover, the prices here were quite cheap, about half of what they were outside. Although Lu Yi did not come and go in a hurry last time, he was locked up in the prison for a few days, so he did not have the chance to walk around Grand Sky City. Now, he could take advantage of the night to look around. Hoopa squatted on his shoulder, and the man and tiger walked around Grand Sky City at night. After a while, Lu Yi stopped in front of a shop that specialized in selling demonic beast meat. The two flood dragons in the War Merit Pavilion were big eaters, so Lu Yi spent 10 to 20,000 merit points each time he went in and out, so he might as well buy some demonic beast meat as backup. When he and Hoopa needed it, they could feed it to the two flood dragons. He rarely used spirit stones, so he had accumulated a lot in his storage space. After spending nearly 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones and almost emptying the stock of the shop, Lu Yi left with satisfaction, leaving the cultivator guarding the shop with a melancholic expression. He entered another restaurant, ordered a table of good dishes, sat by the window, and ate heartily. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he continued to stroll around, and when he passed by a spirit tool shop, he entered. The encounter during the day reminded him of one thing, and that was, the mountain pan saber was recently upgrading, so he had to find another long saber to temporarily replace it. Although it wouldn't take long for the mountain pan saber to be completely repaired, if he needed to face an enemy during this period of time and didn't have a suitable weapon, it would be inconvenient for him to display his strength. The situation during the day was like that. If it wasn't for the sudden collapse of his long saber, his opponent wouldn't have been able to catch his breath. In the future, the mountain pan saber might not be by his side, so having a backup would be more than enough to deal with emergencies. However, he was now in the true lake stage, so spiritual weapons were no longer suitable for him, so he could only choose a magic weapon. Weapons of this grade were naturally not cheap. After a brief search in this spirit tool shop, he found a few magic tool long sabers. However, only one of them barely met his requirements. He spent another large sum of spirit stones to buy this saber. Compared to the mountain pan saber, this saber was more than sharp, but not heavy enough, so Lu Yi didn't feel comfortable using it. Moreover, the mountain pan saber had been with him for many years, and it was already imprinted with him, which was something that other weapons couldn't replace. Realistically speaking, even if this saber wasn't inferior to the mountain pan saber in terms of quality, Lu Yi could only display 90% of his usual strength. Weapon cultivators relied too much on their weapons, which was an undeniable disadvantage of weapon cultivators. After buying the demonic beast meat and the magic saber, Lu Yi didn't have the mood to continue shopping, afraid that he wouldn't be able to resist the urge to buy something. Although he had a lot of spoils of war, he couldn't afford to spend so extravagantly. He found an ownerless house nearby, opened the restrictions on the house, and went in to rest. He could finally come out to take a breather. After a while, a man, a spirit, and a tiger sat together. Lu Ye's heart moved, borrowing the power of heaven's secrets to cultivate, and at the same time, urging the talent tree to continuously devour the power of the fire spirit rock in his hand. The talent tree's transformation hadn't been completed, and he didn't know how much energy it needed to absorb. Anyway, as long as Lu Yi had the time, he would take out the fire spirit rock and let the talent tree devour it. After a peaceful night, Lu Yi got up, packed his things, opened the door, and prepared to return to Tsangyen Mountain. However, just as he was about to move, a person descended from the sky and landed in front of him. The person who came was a tall and sturdy man with a full beard. He had a square face and looked very forthright. The two of them looked at each other. The sturdy man asked, "Junior brother, do you have any military duties?" Lu Yi shook his head, "No." The sturdy man showed his guard order to Lu Yi. "This one is from the Law Division's Law Enforcement Hall, A3 Squad Captain Gung Wuyu. We are temporarily recruiting Junior Brother to follow us on a mission. If Junior Brother doesn't have any military duties, you can't disobey orders." As he spoke, the sturdy man urged his guard order, which emitted a rich yellow light. At the same time, his spirit energy surged, revealing his powerful ninth order true lake realm cultivation. Lu Yi was stunned by his words, but he quickly reacted. Was he being recruited? But was it possible to recruit him on a temporary basis? As if he had misunderstood something, King Gung Wuyu said, "Junior brother, don't worry. This mission isn't too risky, and it won't take too long. At most, it will take 3 to 5 days, so it won't take up too much of your time. Moreover, if you follow us on this mission, you will also be able to earn merits." Chapter 897. Lu Yi didn't care about the merit points. He still had a lot of merit points that he hadn't used up yet. Compared to merit points, he was more interested in the way the law enforcement hall did things. When he joined the military province guards, he didn't ask for too long, so he didn't know much about the military province guards. What made him curious was, did the military province guards allow this kind of temporary recruitment? And they didn't allow him to refuse. With that thought in mind, he said, Senior Marshal Brother, please wait for a moment. I've only been in the War Province Guards for a month and I only took a day off to come to vast Sky City. I still need to ask my superiors about this. King Jianghu frowned and asked, Who are your superiors? Great Moon Passes Lord, Nian Yuxian. King Gengwu was stunned. It's her. No, it's said that there are no other prefecture guards on her side. How did you? There weren't any more than a month ago. King Gengwu nodded slightly. If it's her, you can ask your superiors. In other words, he trusted Nian Yuxian very much. If it was someone else, they might not be treated like this. Lu Yi then forced Wei Ling to contact the missing Moon Immortal and told her about what had happened. Soon, he got a reply, yes. That was an agreement. Since his superior had agreed, Lu Yi had nothing to say and left with King Gengwu. On the other side, Nian Yuxian raised her hand and tapped on her battlefield imprint to send out a message. What are you doing? Soon, she got a reply. Senior Marshal Sister Nian, you're finally willing to contact me? Cut the crap. If you don't give me an explanation, I'll go to Great Sky City and break your skull. Search. Don't do that. I'm the head of the Law Enforcement Division. If you really do that, I'll lose face. The other party pleaded, and then explained, this brat under your command has been mixed up in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield since the beginning of his cultivation, so it can be said that he knows nothing about the situation in the 9 provinces. After entering the regional guard, he still went to your place. What's the situation on your side is what you're thinking. If he stays there for a long time, he won't have many chances to gain merit or be promoted. I'm trying to think of a way to sharpen him, and at the same time, let him understand more about the situation in the 9 provinces. It's said that good men aspire to travel far, and he can be considered a talent. You wouldn't want him to stay there and become a cripple, would you? Of course, if Senior Sister insists on raising him into a greenhouse flower, I can give the order to let him go right now. Flowers in the greenhouse? The thought Moon Immortal sneered inwardly. I'm afraid you don't know what he has done before. In just 1 month since he came here, he accidentally stirred up the lonely mountain pass and saved my life under the noses of several hostile Spirit Sea Realm warriors. Even if he were a flower in a greenhouse, he would still be covered in thorns and thorns. Of course, there was no need to elaborate on such matters. If anything happens to him, I will wring your head off. In the main hall of the law department in Haotian City, Qian Wudong read the message from the Thought Moon Immortal and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This senior sister of his had been as cold as ice in recent years, but in fact, she had never restrained her fiery temper. She would break people's skulls and wring people's heads at the slightest provocation. Also, don't think that I don't know what you are up to. Another message came. What could I possibly be up to? Qian Wudong smiled bitterly in his mind. He knew that his thoughts had been seen through, but he didn't want to talk about it. Instead, he changed the topic. Why did this guy come back to the Haotian City? Go and ask him yourself. Thought Moon Immortal became a message and couldn't be contacted anymore. Qian Wudong was just asking casually, but the Thought Moon Immortal's attitude made him feel strange. Right, this guy had only been to the front line for a month. Why did he come back to the Haotian City? He didn't think too much about it before. After all, there were so many people coming and going in the Haotian City and no one restricted the true lake from entering or leaving. Now that he thought about it, something was indeed wrong. He immediately asked someone to check it out. Soon he got the feedback. Looking at the information in front of him, Qian Wudong was stunned. A First Order Marshal King Captain? Did the official division make a mistake, or did he see it wrong? If he remembered correctly, this guy used to be a guard. A 9th Order Cloud River Realm Guard was already shocking enough. How did he become a captain in just 1 month? The first thought that came to Qian Wudong's mind was that Thought Moon Immortal used her authority as a mountain pass lord to open the door to True Lake, allowing him to accumulate a lot of war credits in a short time. But soon he denied this idea. It wasn't that Thought Moon Immortal couldn't do it, but that Thought Moon Immortal couldn't do it. She wouldn't do it without knowing the consequences. She would be punished by the heavens. Once that happened, even if she was a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, she wouldn't be able to handle it. In other words, This guy used his own ability to accumulate a lot of war credits in a short time and was promoted from a guard to a captain. Did he kill Wanzhonggang or destroy Lonely Mountain City? But if that was the case, there should be some good news from the front line. Recently, there hadn't been any good news in Grand Sky City. Qian Wudong couldn't figure out what True Lake had done. His heart was itching, so he shamelessly sent a message to Thought Moon Immortal, wanting to ask about it. But there was no response. No matter how he asked, there was no reply. At this time, True Lake had already met up with his A3 squad under the leadership of Gung Lingzhou. Including the captain, Gung Lingzhou, there were only 5 people in the squad. A sword cultivator with a grumpy face and a warm smile on his face, Xiao Run. A taciturn spell cultivator with a cold expression, Sheng Guanqiu. Ghost cultivator Kang Yuanxiao with a cunning look in his eyes from time to time, constantly glancing at a female companion. A petite female cultivator with a curvaceous figure, Mu Zheng. Including True Lake, who joined temporarily, the squad of 6 people was gathered. This was also the standard number of people in the law enforcement team of the law enforcement hall. Among the 6, the captain, Gung Lingzhou, was undoubtedly the strongest. He was a 9th order martial king. In the entire 9 regions he wasn't weak. The others had different cultivations, but they were all above 3rd order martial king. Everyone reported their names and cultivations, then looked at True Lake together. True Lake could only say, True Lake of Jade Blood Sect, 1st Order Suing. If the name of True Lake of Jade Blood Sect was announced in the Cloud River battlefield, or even in the current Spirit Stream battlefield, it would definitely attract attention. But these people in front of him had long left the 2 major battlefields and were struggling on the front line. Naturally, they had never heard of True Lake's name. But the 3 words, Jade Blood Sect, made their expressions turn serious. Xiao Ruyun was surprised. Junior brother is from Jade Blood Sect? True Lake looked at him. Senior brother Kang is from North Profound Sword Sect. Xiao Ruyun shook his head. North Profound Sword Sect's requirements for accepting disciples are extremely strict. I wasn't lucky enough to be accepted. I'm from a 4th grade sect. Although the sword cultivators of North Profound Sword Sect are good, senior brother Kang's means may not be inferior to theirs. The ghost cultivator named Kang Yuanxiao said, Kid, don't think that a sword cultivator is from North Profound Sword Sect. All the big sects in the War Province have sword cultivators. He turned his head and looked at Gung's spirit boat. Captain, what's the situation? Even if you want to recruit strong men, you should recruit someone with a higher cultivation. This kid looks like he just became a martial king not long ago. How useful can he be? He was indeed a straightforward person. He did not care about Zhenhua's cultivation level, so he directly said it out loud and did not try to hide it. Talk too much. So what if he's a 1st order Suing? Didn't you come from 1st order Suing? Gung's spirit boat glared at him. To be honest, if possible, he didn't want to choose True Lake. But this order was directly given by the minister, so he couldn't resist. He couldn't help but feel suspicious. He didn't hear that the minister had any close relationship with Jade Blood Sect. Why would he take care of this kid? In his opinion, this mission with them was to take care of them. Because it didn't take much effort to get a lot of war credits, adding a stroke to the merit book. Otherwise, although there weren't many cultivators in Grand Sky City, he wouldn't have found True Lake. I'm just saying. Kang Yuanxiao shrunk his neck and turned to the female cultivator next to him. Junior sister Mu, after this mission, I'll take you to a fun place. Mu Zheng smiled sweetly. I'm not going. Kang Yuanxiao immediately put on a sad look and pestered her. It was the first time True Lake saw a martial king like this. He couldn't help but frown. Xiao Ruyun understood and smiled slightly. We brothers have been together for a long time and are used to being casual. Junior brother Lu, you don't have to worry about it. Well, everyone is here. Let's go. Gung's spirit boat said and summoned a land leaf. The land leaf was prepared for a small team. It was much narrower than True Lake's land leaf, enough to accommodate 7 or 8 people. Everyone boarded the boat. The silent Shengguan Qiu stepped forward and drove the land leaf into the sky. The others looked for a place to rest. Old Kong, tell the new little brother the rules. Gung's spirit boat ordered. Yes. Xiao Ruyun replied and looked at True Lake. Junior brother, if you have anything to ask, you can ask me. Su Ying asked his question, when you law enforcement teams carry out missions, can you randomly recruit people in the city? Xiao Ruyun smiled slightly. Junior brother, you don't know. Compared to the entire State Guard, the Law Division is the most understaffed. Because the Law Division recruits people at least at the Martial King realm. If your cultivation is low, you can't do anything about law enforcement. This was understandable. Cultivators who dared to violate the law must not have a low cultivation. This required the law enforcement team to use stronger methods to suppress them. Cloud River Realm cultivators were obviously not suitable. The mission carried out by the Law Division is to punish those who violate the laws of the State Guard internally and strangle enemies who betray their master externally. In the process of carrying out the mission, there will be many obstacles, so it's relatively safe. The casualty rate is also high. As a result, the Law Division is understaffed all year round. Our team is the same. Originally, there were 6 people, but in the previous mission, 1 brother died in battle, so there was an empty spot. This time, there is a mission, so we can only pull in strong men. This is also allowed. Chapter 898. There was one more thing that Kang Yuanxiao did not explain to Lu Yi, and that was that even though the Law Division was a powerful organization and no one dared to provoke them outside, the things they did were often unpleasant. Most cultivators were used to being free and unrestrained, and did not have any scruples in doing things. However, the law of the State Guards was like a mountain, and it was inevitable that someone would inadvertently violate the law of the State Guards. As a result, the Law Division needed to step in and deal with it. In the process of dealing with these matters, it was very easy to offend people and then be feared and hated by others. This was also the reason why the Law Division feared the law. There were many cultivators in the war state, and even if the Law Division had strict requirements to recruit people, requiring at least the cultivation of the True Lake stage, they did not have many people. It was because many times the Law Division cultivators did things that offended people and were not liked by others, so there were not many who were willing to join the Law Division. If they really wanted to gain merit, they could do it at any of the front lines. In addition to the high casualty rate, the Law Division's law enforcement team often had a shortage of people. Pulling in able-bodied men became an unspoken rule. Kang Yuanxiao spoke with a serious expression. Junior apprentice brother Lu, during the law enforcement team's mission, there are 3 things that are not allowed. Please remember, if you violate them, you will not be let off lightly. Senior apprentice brother, please speak. Lu Yi was all ears. First, you are not allowed to use your status as a law enforcement team member to do personal things. Second, during the mission, without permission, you are not allowed to contact the outside world. Third, during the mission, you are not allowed to act alone, and at least have to be in a group of 2. These 2 must be remembered. The sect leader nodded seriously. I will remember. The 3 uniform beauties were also women, and smiled slightly. Of course, junior apprentice brother need not be too relaxed. There is a first time for everything. Just experience more and it will be fine. Ji Biao thought that he was not relaxed either, so he asked, what mission are we doing this time? Ji Biao Xiong smiled and shook his head. Only the captain knows the details of the mission. We are only responsible for following orders. In the following time, the True Lake stage told the sect many things to pay attention to, and Biao Xiong 5 are rested. As for the others, they were all focused and ready to go all out. After saying everything that needed to be said to the sect, the True Lake stage cultivator took out an item and passed it to Ji Biao. Little brother, take some time to refine this item. Zhong Shou took it and looked at it. He asked suspiciously, formation plate? The thing in his hand looked similar to a disc array, but it didn't look like a disc array. Instead, it looked more like a Dharma artifact. However, if one were to call it a Dharma artifact, it seemed to lack something. 6 Origin Spirit Forbidding Locks. This is a spirit artifact unique to the Law Enforcement Division. It can't be found outside. When the time comes to carry out the mission, the 6 of us will need to split into 6 different directions and activate the power of this object. We will be able to restrict the flow of spiritual power in a certain area. As long as everything goes well, we will be able to take down the target effortlessly. The sect leader was enlightened. No wonder he felt that something was missing from this item. It turned out that this item came in a set. There were 6 pieces in a set, and each of the 6 people had one. The principle of its operation was similar to that of a formation. It meant that each of the 6 people had this item and could set up a spirit-forbidding array in a very short period of time. A cultivator's greatest reliance was the spiritual power that they cultivated. If their spiritual power was restricted, then their cultivation would not be able to be used. However, their physique was much stronger than Immortal's, which naturally made it easier for the law enforcement division to carry out the mission. No wonder they needed to pull in a strong man. Because there were 6 of these items, they needed the cooperation of 6 people. Therefore, when the A3 team lacked a member, the Gung spirit vessel could only carefully pull in a dry person to make up the number. Senior Marshal Brother, how high is the cultivation base of the person we need to deal with? Zhong Shou's expression was solemn. The strength of this team was not weak, but they still needed to use this kind of magic artifact. Wouldn't the enemy they were about to encounter be very weak? The true lake stage cultivator knew what Zhong Shou was thinking and comforted him. In particular, the cultivation base of the target we need to deal with is in Mafeng. Therefore, even if we face him head-on, we can still take him down. It's just that with this item in hand, it's more convenient to carry out the mission and avoid any unnecessary injuries. Zhong Shou then understood. Junior Marshal Brother, refine it first. When you can activate the power of this item, I will teach you the cooperation method. Thank you, Senior Marshal Brother. Refining the 6 origin spirit restriction locks was not a problem. Zhong Shou's spiritual power was pure enough. No matter what he refined, the efficiency was very high. In just half an hour, he had completely refined the 6 origin spirit restriction locks in his hand. He also asked Ji Biaoxiong for the cooperation method. Soon, everything was ready. Lu Yi flew through the clouds. During this time, the Gung spirit vessel replaced Lu Ye's Shangguanqiu. It was not until the second day that they arrived at their destination. Lu Yi stopped. The 6 people walked out one by one and stood in the air. Looking at the capital gate, there were many pavilions and lofts in the second type of Shueishu law firm. It was obvious that the first department had been there for many years. Looking at it this way, the target of this mission should be someone from the Wei Lu. Immortal Dawn Mountain. The true lake stage cultivator at the side was more knowledgeable. He immediately recognized that this was a Wei Lu called the Immortal Dawn Mountain. In the entire Jiuzhou, the Immortal Dawn Mountain was not very famous. However, in the military province, this Wei Lu was a little famous because it was a 4th rank Wei Lu. According to the Jiuzhou Tianji's evaluation of Ji Biao's rank, there were at least 20 in Mo Feng's in the 4th rank Wei Lu. As for the Spirit Sea stage, there was definitely no one. This was because if the Immortal Dawn Mountain had a Spirit Sea stage cultivator, it would not be a 4th rank cultivator, but a 3rd rank cultivator. To be able to send out an enforcement team of an Mo Feng's, it meant that the person they were going to deal with this time must be someone high up in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. It was very likely that it was an elder. As for who exactly it was, only the Gung spirit vessel would know. The only thing that the sect was curious about was why the target of this mission was targeted by the law division. Did he offend a martial king? Or was he a spy of the Wanimo Ridge? Go down. The Gung spirit vessel waved its hand. Everyone landed and silently passed through the mountain ridge. After walking for a while, they saw a straw hut. In front of the straw hut, an old man with a solemn expression was quietly waiting. He should have made an appointment with the Gung spirit vessel. The team led the way. Junior Gung. The old man cupped his fists. The Gung spirit vessel returned the salute. Kong Yuan Xiao, long time no see. The old man was the sect master of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, Sect Masterin. This time, the A3 team came to the Immortal Dawn Mountain to capture someone. Naturally, they had to greet the sect master. Without his permission and cooperation, not to mention capturing someone, Even entering the Immortal Dawn Mountain would be a problem. Ji Biao-xiong smiled bitterly. After so many years, Junior Gung is still as good as ever. Ji Biao-xiong is also old but strong. No, I can't reach the Spirit Sea stage in this life. But Junior Gung, if you work hard, there might be hope. The Gung spirit vessel's eyes flashed with a hint of sadness. He himself was unclear about his own talent. If he did not have a great opportunity in this life, he would stop at this point. From the True Lake stage to the Spirit Sea stage, the barrier between the True Lake stage and the Spirit Sea stage made many heroes cry. He, the Gung spirit vessel, was not an ordinary monster. How could he be an exception? Sweeping away the depression in his heart, Gung Jibiao straightened his face. Let's not talk about other people's business. Kang Yuanxiao should know why we are here. Ji Biao-xiong's gaze swept across the 5 people behind the Gung spirit vessel. His expression became bitter. Who is it? How could Ji Biao-xiong not recognize the law enforcement team of the law department? It was precisely because he recognized them that his heart was bitter. Because after receiving the message from the Gung spirit vessel, he could not figure out who the Gung spirit vessel's target was. The Fu and Mofengs who stayed in the mountain were all of the older generation who had made great contributions to the Wei LV. How could such a person be targeted by the law department? If it was just offending King Wu, then it was fine. To be honest, most of the state guards had offended King Wu more or less, but the degree was different. King Wu was like a mountain, but the law was nothing more than human feelings. If it was just offending King Wu, it was not a big deal. He was only afraid that it was not the time to offend King Wu. The Gung spirit vessel did not make a sound. He just wriggled a few times at Ji Biao-xiong's mouth. Sect leader An's expression changed abruptly. How could it be him? He thought about the few Ji Biao-xiong who stayed behind to guard the mountain. The others might have offended King Wu, but it was impossible for this person to have done so. However, he never expected that the name inferred from the Gung spirit boat's mouth was actually this person's name. But if it was not Ji Biao, then? Ji Biao-xiong suddenly felt a little creepy. What's the reason? Kang Yuanxiao should know the rules of the law department. Please don't ask more. The Gung spirit vessel's expression was impartial. Sigh. Ji Biao-xiong sighed heavily. If this old man said that this matter might be wrong, you shouldn't, the Gung spirit vessel interrupted him. Kang Yuanxiao, please don't take any chances. You should know the law department's style of doing things. For so many years, how many people who have been targeted by the law department are innocent? If there is no conclusive evidence, the law department will not make a big fuss. Because once the law department's people made a move, even if there was nothing, it would become a problem. It would be very difficult to ruin a person's reputation. Therefore, the law department's enforcement team would not make a move easily. But once they made a move, it meant that they already had conclusive evidence. Sect leader An's expression seemed to have aged a lot. He stood in the same place for a long time before he said, "Follow me." Thank you for your trouble, Kang Yuanxiao. The Gung spirit vessel's gaze was sharp. But Kang Yuanxiao, please consider the big picture. I know you have a close personal relationship with that person. But Kang Yuanxiao, don't forget that you are not only that person's friend, but also the sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. This old man knows. Sect leader An's expression was solemn. There is no need for junior brother to remind me. He turned around and led the way. They did not meet a single Immortal Dawn Mountain disciple. The entire Immortal Dawn Mountain did not seem to notice the sudden visit of a group of 6 people today. Until they walked for dozens of miles and approached the valley in front of the straw hut in the valley, the old man fishing in the lake shook his hand and the fishing rod fell into the water. He sighed heavily, his face was full of bitterness. What should come, finally came. It was the last day of the month. There was nothing to do. He wanted to ask for monthly votes. Every month, he could get almost 2,000 votes. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.